Good day, distinguished guests, and welcome to the virtual session on managing networks and transboundary cooperation on marine protected areas in the ASEAN region. I'm Antoinette Toss, United Nations Environment Program Goodwill Ambassador, founder of CORA, and proud to be a partner changemaker for the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. I'm grateful to be your host for today and honored to welcome you to this most significant event. This virtual session is made possible through the collaboration between the Partnerships in Environmental Management for the Seas of Southeast Asia, or PEMSE, and one of the organizations that is close to my heart, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, or the ACB. Our event this morning is one of the exciting activities lined up before the East Asian Seas Congress 2021. And before we go any further, please allow me to provide a few reminders to ensure the best experience for everyone. For our guests joining us through Zoom, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much, and kindly refer to the chat box found at the bottom of your screen for announcements and information from the organizers of today's event. We also encourage you to post greetings and messages in the chat box. Beside it is the Q&A box, where you can type in your questions for our speakers, which we will read out during the Q&A part of our event later on. For your questions, please do include the name of the speaker you are addressing the question to, and of course, who you are and who you represent. We will try to address as many questions as time will allow. And we will also like to remind everyone that this event is being recorded for documentation purposes. For those watching through Facebook Live, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Please refer to the comments section for any announcement from our organizers. Now, we also encourage you to send in your messages and questions for the speakers or the organizers using the comments section as well. Similarly, please specify the speaker you are addressing the question to. Towards the end of this webinar, we will share a link to a short evaluation form, which we hope you can spend a few moments answering to help us improve our future events. Thank you again so much for listening to these reminders. And this event is very interesting for me as well, because I am deeply committed to protecting marine life. The SDGs are something I am very, very passionate about, but it all really began for me with number 14, life below water. The ocean is something that also has helped heal me through my personal journey in my life. So beyond the coastal cleanups that we do, the waste management projects, the engagements for climate action, it really is about what the ocean provides for all of us across the world, and most especially in the ASEAN region. So I'm truly honored to be here with you all today. And today we will also be hearing from an impressive lineup of resource speakers coming from all over the ASEAN. They will share various initiatives and collaborative actions on sustaining healthy coastal and marine ecosystems through transboundary cooperation. To formally open our virtual event today, we have an expert on biodiversity, wildlife management, and policy. She served as the chair of global and regional meetings, such as the Convention on Biological Diversity's subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice. Sending her warm welcome to us through a pre-recorded message, here is the Executive Director of the ACB, Dr. Teresa Mundita Lim.
Dr. Pornshri Sutanaruk, Deputy Director General, Department of Marine and Coastal Resources, Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, Thailand. Dr. Kavutan, Intergovernmental Session Chair. Ms. Leah Carrer, Senior Program Manager, Jeff Secretariat. My good friend, Dr. Jose E. Padilla, JOPAD, Regional Technical Advisor, Water and Oceans, United Nations Development Program. To our distinguished panel of speakers, representatives from the ASEAN member states, members of the PEMSE, and partners, good morning to all of you. Though I am unable to join you live today, let me thank PEMSE for co-organizing this pre-Congress virtual session with us, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, in preparation for the East Asian Seas Congress 2021, which will be held this December. I also extend my congratulations to the Royal Government of Cambodia for the successful hosting of the Congress with the rousing theme, Charting a New Decade of Healthy Oceans, People and Economies, or HOPE. Indeed, the world is navigating turbulent waters as we continue to bear the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change. But as world leaders unanimously agree during the high-level segment of the 15th meeting of the parties of the Convention on Biological Diversity, or CBD COP15, we should not waste any more time, and we must take the urgent and necessary actions now if we are to secure a better tomorrow. It is heartening, therefore, to witness and be part of the historic global movements that are now taking place to recalibrate our bearings towards a goal of living in harmony with nature. The Kunming Declaration, which was adopted during the high-level segment of the meeting, further emphasized the world's commitment to negotiate an effective post-2020 global biodiversity framework by the second phase of the COP in 2022. The declaration committed to step up actions to reduce the negative effects of human activities on the ocean, to protect marine and coastal biodiversity, and strengthen the resilience of marine and coastal ecosystems to climate change, while also noting the efforts and commitments of various countries in protecting 30% of their land and sea areas by 2030. Brunei Darussalam, as this year's ASEAN chair, delivered the ASEAN joint statement at the meeting, reiterating the region's concern on marine debris and emphasizing the collective actions taken by the ASEAN member states. Recognizing the enormity of climate change as a global threat, including its complex impacts such as ocean acidification and sea level rise, the AMS agreed to intensify regional efforts towards nature-based solutions through actions that protect marine and coastal ecosystems. Thus, the pre-Congress virtual session could not have come at a more opportune time. Today's knowledge exchange, particularly the virtual poster presentations of the AHP sites in large marine ecosystems, such as the Indonesian seas and the Andaman Sea in the Bay of Bengal, allows us to deep dive into transboundary management efforts at the site, national, and regional levels. The sharing from our esteemed speakers from the UNDP, Coral Triangle Initiative on Coral Reefs, Fisheries and Food Security, and the Arafura Timor Seas Ecosystem Action Plan will share more in-depth insights on the importance of these transboundary approaches to large seascapes. Meanwhile, we at the ACB are honored to share with you our efforts in supporting the AMS in enhancing marine biodiversity conservation through the ASEAN Heritage Parks Program and the ASEAN Flyway Network, and through knowledge management platforms such as the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard, among others. We are also glad to have with us today Ms. Kerrer from the Global Environment Facility, or the GEF. The other day, I was in a panel with Matthew Reddy, Senior Private Sector Specialist of the Global Environment Facility of the GEF, and he mentioned that the GEF is pushing for an integrated approach with enhanced engagement and collaboration in multi-stakeholder platforms. Such commitment for resources is necessary if we are to bridge the conservation financing gap for our protected areas. Just as the CBD Executive Secretary, Ms. Elizabeth Mrema, said during the high-level segment, safeguarding biodiversity is the defining task of the decade, positioned at the center of the biggest issues of the world. We must all undertake this task as a community, as a nation, as a region. Our collective efforts, when pulled together, can make a huge difference in protecting biodiversity and in saving our planet. We are all part of the solution for nature because Hashtag We Are ASEAN Biodiversity. Thank you, and I wish you all a productive session today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lim. Oh my gosh, yes. Hashtag We Are ASEAN Biodiversity. I really love that you closed your message with that. And I just want to personally share as well that this truly is important to us as well, to me personally, as a citizen, as a volunteer. And in our work, biodiversity is something that we've learned so much about, but more than anything, more than really learning how it provides for us across the world, from food to resources, at the same time, for the younger generation, it provides so much wonder and beauty and hope and life. And these are the things that we really, truly hope to protect. And it truly is powerful to learn that the things that we see around us are not just where we are. They are shared resources across the world and across our precious ASEAN region. Our next speaker for the opening part of the program is a member of the PEMC Executive Committee. Apart from this, he is the director of the Department of International Cooperation and Science Technology. Prior to holding these posts, he spent several years teaching at the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering in Saitama University before serving in senior positions for Vietnam's Administration of Seas and Islands. May I present Dr. Ka Vu Tan.
Thank you very much, Antoinette. Dr. Mundita Lim, Ms. Leah Kara, Dr. Jose Padilla, Dr. Handoko, distinguished speakers, representatives from the ACB and PEMC country partners, friends, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of PEMC, I would like to welcome you to this collab, which is one of the pre-Congress events of the East Congress 2021 that will culminate on December 1 to 2021. It is also one of the many collaborative activities we do with the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, a PEMC non-country partner, through the years. The East Congress 2021 with the theme, Charting a New Decade of Hope, Healthy Ocean, People and Economies, choice the start of decadal actions in promoting sustainable development agenda alongside the launch of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development and UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration and the negotiations for the post-2020 biodiversity framework and the UNFCCC COP, among other global events. The global pandemic had added a new dimension to the existing challenges in the achieving environmental sustainability, and such countries are in the process of developing and adopting sustainable recovery and adaptation measures in response to the COVID-19 impacts. The collab is one opportunity to come up with the practical recommendations that can help inform global discussions, donor programming, the PEMC roadmap to 2030, and the national and local economic recovery plans on ways to protect and manage coastal and marine biodiversity. This is imperative if we are sustainably manage our shared coastal and marine biodiversity, which is widely known as the global center of marine biodiversity, home to 31% of the world mangroves and a third of the world's coral reefs and seagrass beds, and provide ecosystem goods and services that support food security, livelihood, well-being, and regional peace and stability. PEMC recent review of its shared regional framework, the Sustainable Development Strategy of the Seas of East Asia, SDSC, has shown that there are efforts to conserve and sustainably manage biodiversity at the national level based on country partners' adoption of the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plans, NBS APS. The review also noted that all 11 country partners have compiled to Article 26 of the Convention on Biological Diversity through the submission of their respective 6 national reports to CBD, detailing their accomplishments in biodiversity conservation, supporting policies, legislations, and programs that support biodiversity conservation are also in place in the 11 countries, which are also in line with the SDG 14 and IG biodiversity target 6, 7, 10, and 11. At the local level, management plans and the protection, restoration, and conservation of coastal habitats are in place in the ASEAN side in the form of strategic plans, such as coastal strategies, ASEAN plans, strategic environmental management plans, or thematic plans, i.e. MPA management plans, mangrove conservation plans, etc. In line with the priorities in the NBSAPs, varying levels of application of spatial planning tools such as coastal use zoning and MSP to delineate conservation areas and address use conflicts were noted in selected ASEAN sites, including the application of local state of the coast reporting as a medium for reporting of progress in ASEAN implementation using an agreed set of governance and management program indicators. MPA establishment and networking as tool for conservation planning is widely implemented in the region, particularly in China, Indonesia, and the Philippines. 6 countries collectively covered an estimated 30% of their territorial waters under protection through the designation of MPAs. Today, we will also learn from 2 PMC projects, UNDP GEF AC2 project on the current program and plans on establishing MPA network in the Arafura Timor Seas, and a project with the ASEAN and Norway Transboundary cooperation on local capacity building to reduce plastic pollution in the ASEAN, plastic pollution being seen as a threat and or opportunity for implementing circular economy in MPAs. With this, I look forward to a fruitful and productive discussion on experiences and practices on transboundary MPA and other collaborative management, networking, and partnership development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ka. And truly, when we think of the precious biodiversity of the ASEAN region, that was one of the greatest wonders that I found out about being in the region where the center of marine biodiversity is located. Beyond that, the Coral Triangle, and of course, knowing that the countries of the Coral Triangle also encompass the largest areas of mangroves on the planet, really showing how much this provides not just for people, but of course, to contributing to climate action and carbon sequestration. There's just so many wonders to protect, to love, and of course, for us to work together to conserve. Our next speaker for the opening program is a champion for ocean conservation. For 25 years, she provided guidance to global multi-million-dollar conservation initiatives at the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, at the Conservation International, and currently at the Global Environment Facility, where she is a senior program manager. Part of her current work involves developing ocean, plastic, and circular economy projects. Please welcome Dr. Leah Carer.
Thank you so much. Dr. Lim, Dr. Ka, and Dr. Sutanarak, distinguished speakers and participants, it is a great pleasure to join you all today. A huge thank you to both the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity and to PIMC for this opportunity. I'm thrilled that this pre-Congress virtual session is focused on transboundary cooperation, particularly the networks of marine protected areas in the region. As many of you know, transboundary governance is the foundation of GEF investments in ocean and freshwater initiatives around the world. So over the last 30 years, we've invested in 23 large marine ecosystems around the world, including 6 here in the East Asian seas. In addition, marine protected areas are priority global environmental benefits of GEF investments. These investments ensure countries throughout the region can meet their obligations of environmental agreements. For example, the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework stresses the need for mainstreaming biodiversity across sectors of the economy and society. Mainstreaming is a key aspect of large marine ecosystems and marine protected areas, which address a range of activities from fisheries to agriculture to tourism. So through the work of ASEAN, PIMC, and many partners, the LMEs and MPAs of this region are truly global leaders and have been for decades. In fact, I remember when I was back in graduate school here in the United States, it was about 25 years ago, and one of the main case studies we first learned about was Apo Island, Marine Protected Area in the Philippines. It was one of the shining success stories. And since then, we've seen seascapes, large marine ecosystems, the Coral Triangles Initiative established, as well as numerous marine protected areas, further demonstrating this region's leadership. Since this session focuses on lessons learned, I wanted to just highlight a couple of the region's greatest contributions from my perspective. There are many, but I'll just focus on a couple. The first is the importance of an integrated approach. PIMC, I think we all recognize, is a world-renowned leader for work on integrated coastal zone management, having assisted in building ICZM strategies throughout the region. As these projects have demonstrated, integration basically refers to working across sectors, geographies, and stakeholders. As Dr. Lim noted in her opening address, the integrated approach has also grown in importance at the GEF and is now a central tenet of the soon-to-be agreed GEF 8 funding strategy, where we are working on such integrated issues as sustainable cities, food systems, and my personal favorite, plastic pollution. The other contribution of this region I wanted to highlight is the importance of private sector engagement. For decades, marine conservationists around the world have been relying on government, environmental NGOs, and philanthropic donors such as the GEF to save the ocean. Meanwhile, in the East Asian seas, it's been realized that these stakeholders are not enough, and there's been collaboration with the private sector in 2 critical ways. First, working with businesses to adopt sustainable practices, not only the usual players of fishers and dive operators, but this region has really reached out to coastal developers, insurance companies, shipping companies, agriculturists, and beyond. And second of all, bringing in innovative financing, including multilateral development banks, such as Asian Development Bank and World Bank, as well as impact investors, such as Malloy Fund for fisheries and Circulate Capital for plastic pollution. The GEF has been pleased to help catalyze these private sector partnerships and to help innovate financing. So these 2 tenets, integration and private sector engagement, have been fundamental to the success of the marine conservation efforts in this region and provided important lessons to the world. And so in conclusion, we at the GEF look forward to working with all of you to foster effective, successful transboundary cooperation with networks of marine protected areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kerr, and for all the incredible work that you do. And we actually have a common passion, which is plastic pollution and circular economy. And as you've mentioned that, I keep talking about the beauty and wonder of the ASEAN region, but we also talk about one of the greatest threats, which truly is the plastic pollution crisis. And even with that, we see that truly partnerships is incredibly valuable in solving any issue at all. And that's why today is incredibly important and of course meaningful in solving problems and issues that transcend our countries and our boundaries as well. And of course, in case you have just joined us, welcome to the virtual session on managing networks and transboundary cooperation on marine protected areas in the ASEAN region. This event is organized by PEMC and the ACB. Now, our last speaker for the opening program is the Deputy Director General of the Department of Marine and Coastal Resources of Thailand's Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. Prior to this post, our speaker has led similar offices, such as the Pollution Control Department and the Water Quality Management Division. Our speaker is none other than Dr. Pornsri Sutanaruk.
Dr. Teresa Mandita Lim, Executive Director, ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. Dr. Kawu Than, PMC Executive Committee. Representative of ASEAN Working Group on Nature Conservation and Biodiversity. Representative of ASEAN Working Group on Coastal and Marine Environment. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Chair of ASEAN Working Group on Coastal and Marine Environment, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all and deliver the remarks in the opening session on managing networks and transboundary cooperation on marine protected areas in the ASEAN region. My sincere appreciation is conveying to ACB and PEMC for your efforts in conducting this virtual meeting, and special thanks to all participants attending this session. As you are all aware, that ASEAN region is rich of marine and coastal resources. However, the resources do not respect country boundaries. Migratory species, either terrestrial or marine, move from one country to others for their living. Therefore, considering the importance of connectivity and integrity of ecosystem, integrated coastal zone management has been widely implemented in ASEAN region. Marine spatial planning and marine protected area are among various management tools that have been adopted following the ICZM principles. All these efforts have been made in order to achieve the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework target in protecting and conserving 30% of terrestrial, inland water, coastal and ocean areas by 2030. However, other additional key factors such as effective governance, efficiency for biodiversity conservation in large marine ecosystem, financial mechanisms, public awareness, especially strong collaboration among ASEAN countries, are also important to success. All those play important roles to maintain biodiversity and keep productive and healthy ocean for mankind. Sharing lessons learned and best practices will enhance capability to tackle the problems and minimize negative impacts on biodiversity and environment through mitigation and adaptation mechanisms. In addition, the establishment of mainstream solutions can encourage people to make responsible alternatives to reduce the worst impact. Ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that the meeting will strengthen collaborations among ASEAN member states to express the views how we can cooperate to preserve our ecosystems. The engagement of stakeholders from all levels will leverage ways to fulfill our goals to 2050 vision on living harmony with nature. I wish you have fruitful discussion to make concrete actions to respond to post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework and support the relevant Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much. สวัสดีค่ะ
Thank you very much, Dr. Sutanaruk. And I would just like to quote the great, or her deepness, Dr. Sylvia Earle, who says, "No blue, no green, no ocean, no life. And when we protect the ocean, we protect all life. And of course, the lives of the citizens of the ASEAN region, providing, empowering, uplifting, protecting women, coastal communities, local communities, youth, fisherfolk. And this, of course, that we do today and talk about today is for them and, of course, our precious biodiversity. We have just heard the messages from Executive Director Lim of the ACB, Dr. Ka of PEMC, Dr. Kerr of Jeff, and Dr. Sutanaruk from Thailand's Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. Now, to give us the keynote message, we are fortunate to have with us a longtime supporter of developing countries in Asia Pacific in transboundary management of large marine ecosystems and in addressing water scarcity issues due to climate change. Currently, he is the Regional Technical Advisor for Water and Oceans at the Bangkok Regional Hub of the United Nations Development Program. Let me now give the floor to Dr. Jose Padilla.
Thank you, Ms. Toss. Our distinguished guest, Dr. Lim, Dr. Than, Dr. Karer, Dr. Satanarak, and the panelists, as well as the participants, good morning to you all. I am tasked this morning to make a presentation on the large marine ecosystem approach in biodiversity conservation and sustainable fisheries. And for this, I would like to thank PEMC and the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity for organizing this webinar as a side event leading up to the East Asian Seas Congress in December. I thought of preparing a PowerPoint presentation just to convey to you more easily concepts that may not be familiar to you, or you must have heard it already. So let's just go through this and maybe learn together. The topic is about transboundary waters. And why transboundary waters? If you look at globally, look at the map, the geography, you will be noticing quite a few of large rivers, lakes and basins that cross boundaries of 2 or more countries. 145 countries have territories within 1 or more of these international basins. In the ASEAN region, the Mekong River comes to mind, and yet there are smaller river basins between, say, Vietnam and China that are transboundary in nature. My focus today, though, is about large marine ecosystems, and this has already been mentioned by Dr. Kerr in her opening address. If you look at the map again, 85% of the world's 64 large marine ecosystems following the delineation of NOAA are shared by 2 or more countries. Because fish and even trash move around these oceans, we have to manage these resources and the threats from it in a transboundary fashion. However, there has been weak or non-existent regional governance mechanisms. However, there has been progress in this area. Now, let me share with you a video just to clarify further what is a large marine ecosystem.
Large marine ecosystems, or LMEs, are relatively large areas of ocean space of about 200,000 square kilometers or more. Adjacent to the continents, these waters are sometimes defined by ocean currents and undersea topography, productive fisheries, and natural food chain interactions. These ecosystems are transboundary in nature by virtue of interconnected currents and movement and migration of marine living resources across boundaries. The world's 66 LMEs are the most highly productive areas of the oceans, They harbor biodiversity and provide important ecosystem services and benefits, including livelihoods, food security, carbon sequestration, and storage and recreational opportunities. Taken together, LMEs provide more than $12 trillion per year in non-market goods and services. A combination of anthropogenic and natural pressures is degrading the health and productivity of LMEs, compromising the sustainability of LME market and non-market ecosystem services. These pressures include nutrient over-enrichment, marine pollution, ocean acidification and sea temperature rise, unsustainable fishing, and invasive species introductions. Since 1995, the Global Environment Facility, GEF, has invested in projects in 23 of these ecosystems. A cornerstone of the GEF's LME programming is the ecosystem-based management concept, which involves a paradigm shift from single species or sector focus to management of an entire ecosystem. It also integrates a science-to-policy process. It encourages neighboring countries to manage their shared marine ecosystem along natural rather than political boundaries. Operationalizing this concept is the modular LME approach. The models are indicators on changes in productivity, fish and fisheries, pollution and ecosystem health, socioeconomics, and governance to support management practices. In most LMEs, participating countries first prepare a formal Transboundary Diagnostic Analysis, or TDA, through a consultative process in which they determine environmental problems, their root causes and impacts. The Strategic Action Program, or SAP, then translates shared commitment and vision into action to resolve priority threats at the national and transboundary level, as well as institutional mechanisms. The GEF's LME-based programming has in several cases been transferred.
Stop there. So that's the LME approach that is being supported by the Global Environment Facility. Now, you may not know it, but or you may have heard of it, but around the region, there are several large marine ecosystems. This map will show you that. So I would request PEMC to navigate through the map. Okay, so that's the Bay of Bengal. If you click that, okay, there are ASEAN countries bordering on the Bay of Bengal, in addition to South Asian countries to the west. There are 8 countries, littoral countries in this large marine ecosystem, and the key information about this LME are indicated in the box. So for instance, the area coverage is over 86 million square kilometers, with MPA coverage also indicated, and the health of the LME is also mentioned. Moving east, we have the Gulf of Thailand, and the Gulf of Thailand has 4 littoral countries, and this would include, of course, the Kingdom of Thailand, Malaysia, Cambodia, and part of Vietnam. To the east is the South China Sea. Okay, the South China Sea is referred to as the West Philippine Sea, as well as the East Asian Sea, East Sea, by other countries. So there are 6 littoral countries in this LME, and coastal population of 271 million, and the area of square kilometers is over 5 million square kilometers. The other LME is the Sulu-Celebes Sea. Okay, and there are three littoral countries here, including the Philippines, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Ms. Toss referred to this, the apex of coral diversity, and this is the region that is usually referred to with respect to that. Below that is the Indonesian seas, and we have Indonesia as well as Timor-Leste. The area is indicated as well as the coastal population. Now, there is actually an LME that is north of Australia, and that includes This is, if you go down, no, that's the other one to the right. Okay, this is the North Australian shelf, and if you project that up, that would include the Arafura and Timor Sea, and that we are, Jeff and the UNDP are supporting this large marine ecosystem. Let's go back to the slide, please. Thank you. So you can see that your countries belong to one or more large marine ecosystem. Mentioned in the film is that the Jeff approach in managing large marine ecosystems involve transboundary diagnostics analysis and a strategic action program. And we will talk about more of this later. And as I mentioned in Asia, and also mentioned by Dr. Karer, Jeff has supported a number of large marine ecosystem projects in Asia, and this includes the Sulu-Celebes Seas, Arafura and Timor Seas, the Yellow Sea, the East Asian Seas, which is a collection of a number of large marine ecosystems, the South China Sea, and the Gulf of Thailand, and Bay of Bengal, as well as the Indonesian seas. The UNDP supported projects are part of my portfolio. The transboundary diagnostic analysis is a mechanism to help participating countries to agree on facts. We feel that it is a significant first step because many conflicts are driven by perceptions, and removing these perceptions is in a scientific way with help in agreeing on the transboundary environmental concerns that they commonly face. The TDA aims to, number one, identify and prioritize the transboundary problems, gather and interpret information on the environmental impacts and socioeconomic consequences of each problem, analyze the immediate underlying and root causes for each problem, and in particular, identify specific practices, sources, locations, and human activity sectors from which environmental degradation arises or threatens to arise. In short, the transboundary, the DDA, is a scientific document. Moving from the TDA is the strategic action program. It is a policy document. It strengthens the participating countries' individual and collective ability to contribute directly to actions. It provides the national and regional commitments to policy, legal, and institutional reforms and investments to remedy root causes of priority transboundary issues in the TDA. For it to have teeth, it has to be endorsed at the ministerial level. And we have seen this in quite a few of the LMEs that UNDP and GEF have been supporting. Next slide. So these are the common transboundary environmental concerns and LMEs from the results of the TTAs in the LMEs that I mentioned. First is biodiversity loss, nutrient over-enrichment or hypoxia, overfishing, plastic pollution, and climate change. Let's look at all of these threats in more detail. I have looked at the coverage of marine protected areas in LMEs. If you look at this, the highest is in the Indonesian seas with over 3.46%, followed by Sulu-Celebes, South China Sea, and the Bay of Bengal and Gulf of Thailand. It is less than 1%. So this is coming from the map that I have shown you earlier, and it may not be updated, but that is the available information at the time that it was accessed. If you compare this MPA coverage with the IT and the SDG 14 target, it is way below the 10% target of MPAs at the LME level. And also looking at the country level, this is the next slide. Okay, so Indonesia had the highest area of designated MPA at 3%, followed by Malaysia. Thailand, rather, is the highest, followed by Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and so on. So again, from the LME perspective level, as well as from the country level, we are way below the 2020 target. And yet we have heard many scientists about a 20% coverage and even a 30% MPA coverage by 2030. So there's a lot of work to be done to even meet the 10% target, which has already passed. There are encouraging developments here. Not only from the perspective of GEF has been widely supporting marine protected areas under the focal areas of biodiversity and international waters, but quite a few of regional institutions like ACB and PEMC have been supporting MPAs. Solution to this is increased MPA coverage and, of course, improved management of MPAs. Just let me clarify that the areas mentioned here are referred to designated areas. It will be a lot smaller if we consider whether these parks are paper parks or they are effectively managed. Next. Okay, let's look at the next threat, which is nutrient over-enrichment or hypoxia. And let's look at the causes of this, each of these threats from an environmental economics lens. The damage is estimated around 200 to 800 billion per year, and this is due to the lack of internalizing costs of nutrient damage to marine and freshwater ecosystems into the price of fertilizer and human and livestock wastewater management practices. This results from studies that most of the nutrient overloading is coming from agriculture and from livestock. The solution is therefore economic and policy incentives for fertilizer use efficiency, nitrogen recovery from wastewater, and enhancing the nutrient sinks, which are the oceans. Next slide. Overfishing. If you look at the FAO data, only about 10% or over 90% of the world's fisheries are overfished, and quite only a few remaining fisheries are sustainably fished. And the reasons being the lack of internalizing socio-economic and environmental costs of overfishing into fisheries management. Further, subsidies, overcapitalized fisheries, particularly in developed countries, and also a lack of enforcement due to IUU fishing. Range of solutions to address the market or policy failure are suggested, are enumerated in this slide. Next. Okay, plastic pollution. Many of the speakers have mentioned about plastic pollution. Based on the data, recent data, it is estimated that about 380 million metric tons of plastics are discarded into the environment every year. 10 to 20 million metric tons per year are entering the oceans, either directly or through river basins. In the ASEAN, the main sources of plastic pollution include Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And the estimate of damage is about 13 billion per year for lack of internalizing costs of effective plastic waste recovery and use. Solutions include supporting a circular economy, looking at also the chain of the use of plastics from production to consumption to disposal and recovery. Next slide. Climate change. Okay, I would like to focus on ocean acidification. Of course, the other climate change related threats include global warming that result in coral bleaching. And we have seen quite a few episodes of coral bleaching in the region. It is interesting to note that over the last few years, oceans have been addressed at the COP, the UNFCCC COP. And looking at the literature, at the news leading up to the COP end of this month, there's a lot of focus on oceans, but we'll see whether there will be concrete actions coming from the COP. It is estimated that the damages from ocean acidification would reach up to 1.2 trillion per year under the business as usual scenario by 2100. The solutions I mentioned here are not new. It has been, advocated in the past, but there have been some episodes or cases, success cases, but it needs to be scaled up. Next slide. So despite the threats and despite the values that our oceans have, there are challenges to LMA management. First is the commitment of littoral countries towards transboundary management to address shared concerns. Oftentimes, countries fail to look beyond their national borders, but a lot of the problems that they face are emanating from what is going on from other countries. So there is a need to recognize that they have to work together to shared concerns in addressing transboundary problems. Finding win-win solutions in addressing transboundary concerns. Oftentimes, the objectives of ocean management or MPA management, there's a trade-off. For example, allowing marine protected areas to recover would mean restrictions in access. So finding those win-win solutions and softening the impacts in the short term and in the medium term of the management measures needed to improve management of MPAs are needed, but we have to find a balance. Lack of appreciation of the economic significance of the value of oceans. The ocean is a pollution sink, as we have. It is the employer of last resort. And despite the value of the oceans, it is actually perplexing that its economic significance and value is not fully appreciated. Significant resources are required to implement national and regional commitments. While Jeff has been providing catalytic support, there's a continuing need to provide financial assistance to countries to address national as well as transboundary concerns. We have seen, though, that in some countries, there is a commitment to allocate resources to address these issues. As in many projects, as in many interventions, we need to have more meaningful engagement of stakeholders, the local, national, regional, and even global. But regional institutions like ACB and PEMC are providing the assistance at the regional as well as at the national level. So I guess I hope that I'm able to impart to you what LMA management means, what are the issues and the challenges, and also recognizing that there has been advances in transboundary management of marine protected areas and fisheries in this sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Padilla. And we have heard such inspiring messages and words that move us to act towards a better future for our planet. Now let us find out what the activities being done for transboundary areas in ASEAN are. Our first speaker was a member of the Task Force on Capacity Building of the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. She was also a program manager for environment at the United Nations Development Program in the Philippines, where she handled programs on global environmental issues such as biodiversity conservation, climate change, and marine and coastal resources management. Presently, she is the director of the Program Development and Implementation Unit of the ACB, where she manages the center's portfolio on capacity building and program and policy development to assist ASEAN member states on biodiversity conservation initiatives. May I present Ms. Clarissa Arida.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Tony, and good to see you again. Thank you for always keeping with us in this important advocacy work on conservation. Distinguished panel of speakers, Ms. Leah Carrera from the GF Secretariat, Dr. Ka, our colleagues from the ASEAN member states, and panel of speakers here, colleagues in conservation work. Good morning, everyone. My presentation will focus on the ASEAN heritage parks and the regional cooperation in ASEAN to effectively manage protected areas of unique biodiversity and ecosystems. Next slide, please. I will try to focus my presentation looking at the wealth and threats of biodiversity in the ASEAN region and the regional cooperation supporting the AHP network towards effectively managing these marine protected areas for sustainable development. Next slide, please. The ACB is an intergovernmental organization, part of the ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and our main mandate is to facilitate cooperation and coordination on the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity in line with the 3 pillars of the Biodiversity Convention. We manage the ASEAN Heritage Parks Program, and we also serve as the Secretariat of the AHP in the nomination and declaration process for the ASEAN Heritage Park. My presentation will also focus on a number of regional initiatives that supports management planning in protected areas, establishing baseline information on species and ecosystems, including support to livelihood and capacity building for law enforcement activities in the various ASEAN heritage parks. Next slide, please. The ASEAN is one of the world's richest marine biodiversity and hosts 1/3 of the world's coastal and marine habitats that include lush coral reefs, mangroves, seagrass, and seaweed beds. What you see in these slides are the 9 marine ASEAN heritage parks, which the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity is supporting. But more than this, as explained by Dr. Padilla, this is part of the large marine ecosystems and seascapes in the region, covering the Gulf of Thailand, South China Sea, Sulawesi Sea, Indonesian seas, the Bay of Bengal, which includes the Andaman Sea. Next slide, please. So I've said the region is one of the world's richest marine biodiversity and hosts 1/3 of the world's coastal and marine habitats with more than 700 species of coral reefs and covering 173,000 kilometers of ASEAN coastline. Next slide, please. This assessment of threats on biodiversity, on coastal and marine biodiversity, is based on the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook, which we have published in 2017, and we are updating now for the 3rd edition of the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook. And this highlights the key threats to our marine resources: habitat change, ineffective governance, pollution, overexploitation of our resources, and even climate change. And earlier, our speakers highlighted the need for effective global environmental governance on our coastal and marine ecosystems, as highlighted by Ms. Leah Carrer, and also the need to address marine debris pollution, plastic pollution, which I will also highlight later in the ways forward for this regional cooperation. Next slide, please. As the coastal and marine habitat serves as breeding, nursing, and feeding grounds for marine plants and animals. It also provides food and resources important to the livelihood of coastal communities, including services such as carbon sequestration, climate regulation, sediment protection, and nutrient cycling. And Dr. Padilla has highlighted the economic losses due to overstocking of nutrients in our seas. There's also the need to emphasize the value of these ecosystem services. And we at the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity is also undertaking a number of evaluation studies to impart to our decision makers on this important ecosystem services that we need to protect. We had regional assessment through our BCOMP project supported by the EU in terms of economic valuation at the regional and national level. And this is also complemented by pilot initiatives on sustainable conservation financing, covering payments for ecosystem services, carbon financing, and optimizing setting of fees in protected areas. Next slide, please. Now, on the ASEAN Heritage Park, this is a regional network of representative protected areas created to generate greater collaboration between the ASEAN member states in preserving our shared natural heritage. Next slide, please. There are now 50 declared ASEAN Heritage Parks in the region, and ACB serves as the secretariat in this ASEAN Heritage Parks program. And these 50 declared ASEAN Heritage Parks covered 9 marine protected areas, 9 wetlands of ecological significance, and 32 terrestrial protected areas. Next slide, please. The ASEAN Heritage Park program supports the ASEAN member states to address the loss of biodiversity and protect coastal and marine habitats and resources. To be recognized as an ASEAN Heritage Park, a protected area must undergo a stringent process to pass several discerning criteria of ecological completeness, naturalness, having high conservation importance, and representing a wide variety of ecosystems of species typical of a particular region. The ASP also provides emphasis on transboundary cooperation, importance to conserve endangered and precious biodiversity, uniqueness, and ethnobiological significance on how the ecosystem supports communities and preserve culture and traditional knowledge. Next slide, please. We have developed a series of ASEAN Heritage Parks Regional Action Plan, and this has been for the past 35 years, actually. Last year, exactly at the same time right now, we had the 6th ASEAN Heritage Park Conference in Pakse in Laos, in Lao PDR, and we are now developing a new regional action plan that would cover and address as well the issues and the priorities in the upcoming post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. And we will be conducting a series of consultation to have a more robust regional action plan on the ASEAN Heritage Parks in support of this important biodiversity sites. Next slide, please. At the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, we have also established a number of regional platforms and mechanisms to strengthen the AHP network. And one of this is the ASEAN Conference on Biodiversity, which we are conducting every 5 years. And just this year, the ACB 2020, well, because of the current pandemic restrictions, we were able to do a series of virtual conferences on ACB Conference 2020, focusing on the various themes on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, on transformative actions and innovations on biodiversity, on mainstreaming biodiversity into various development sectors, as well as engaging business in biodiversity conservation. And as highlighted by Dr. Leah Ferrer, we need to engage the private sector in our work in order to address sustainable development in our region. We also have the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard and the ASEAN Clearinghouse Mechanism, which Dr. Arvin Yesmos will present later, but these are the existing knowledge and information platforms of the ASEAN through the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. Next slide, please. So this is the ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference, which are held every 3 years. And as I've said, exactly 2 years ago in Lao PDR, we had the 6th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference focusing on sustainability and innovations for parks and people in 2019. And we are pleased that in 2022, Indonesia will host the 7th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference with the theme Healing Nature and People, the Role of AHPs in Ecosystems Protection and Pandemic Recovery. And we look forward to having you all in this next ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference. Next slide, please. So this is the ASEAN Conference on Biodiversity, which is another regional platform which is being held every 5 years by the ASEAN. And as I've said, we had the final virtual session in July this year with Malaysia as our host, and emphasized the need for ASEAN's aspirations towards the new global biodiversity framework to have a realistic and doable targets in the post-2020 framework. Next slide, please. There are also a number of regional programs that we are implementing, and one of this is the ASEAN Flyway Network, which will also be presented later by Ms. Chopin of Singapore. Of course, our continuing support to communicating biodiversity, and a number of regional support programs through ASEAN Dialogue Partners, through ASEAN EU, ASEAN Norway, ASEAN Germany cooperation. And of course, collaboration with other regional organizations such as IUCN and PEMC, and of course with the CBD Secretariat. Next slide, please. So with all these regional program initiatives, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity provides capacity building support, technical assistance, highlighting or increasing the visibility of various programs and the need to protect our marine and coastal resources through communications channel, the importance of national and subnational complementation, and of course, the regional platform for information sharing, which I have mentioned in terms of the clearinghouse mechanism and the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard. Next slide, please. Under the ASEAN-Norway cooperation, we are also supporting science-based decision support system for coastal wetlands in the ASEAN region. And we are actually conducting a series of national consultations now to assess the needs for this coastal and marine information decision support system in order to support the ASEAN member states. Next slide, please. These are the various regional programs that we are implementing to the ASEAN-EU cooperation, the BCOM, Biodiversity Conservation and Management in the ASEAN region, the Small Grants Program for ASEAN, which is funded by the KfW of Germany, and we have sites in Indonesia, Myanmar, and Vietnam for the Small Grants Program, and the ISB, which is supporting regional initiatives at the ASEAN level in terms of institutional strengthening of biodiversity sector in ASEAN. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, mainstreaming biodiversity is one of the key priorities of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, and in line also with the CBD targets to mainstream biodiversity into the various sectors. And we have initiated a number of activities that caters to the health and biodiversity, agriculture and biodiversity, and in terms of the relevance to protecting marine conservation and fisheries resources, mainstreaming biodiversity into the fisheries sectors and the tourism sector. So through the ISB, BCAMP, and SGP, we are supporting mainstreaming biodiversity and engaging private sector and businesses in order to address the issues that we have outlined earlier. Next slide, please. Communicating biodiversity is important, so I've said, and the ACB has published a number of materials, and we optimize the use of our various social media platforms, and we endeavor to put up a number of exhibitions and promotion activities in various forums, regional and international, through for example, the upcoming COP and in the previous COP meetings of the CBD. Next slide, please. Dr. Padilla also highlighted the need and the importance of the large marine ecosystems and the various seascapes. And here we are emphasizing the link with other regional programs and initiatives such as the Sulu-Celebes Large Marine Ecosystem, the Bay of Bengal Large Marine Ecosystem, the ASEAN Small Grants Program, and of course the work of the PEMC and the Coral Triangle initiatives. And the ACB is committed to continue the regional cooperation in these areas in support of the various priorities in the region. Next slide, please. And this is the last part of my presentation in terms of ways forward in enhancing regional cooperation in marine biodiversity. Next slide. And I would like to highlight here the need for cross-sectoral and cross-pillar collaboration. And this is within our work in the ASEAN, in the various sectoral groupings in the ASEAN, the need for cross-sectoral cooperation, of course, partnership towards collaborative management of MPAs, marine protected areas, and we're doing that with PEMC and with IUCN, and of course, to address the conservation of threatened species in the ASEAN, including important marine species. Next slide, please. We are also emphasizing the need for support to science-based approaches, and in collaboration with the Pew Trust, we will be launching soon a science-based assessment in support of the need to protect 30% of marine areas globally and regionally. But we need the needed science evidence for the ASEAN member states to identify where are these areas that we need to protect. Of course, we wanted to emphasize the need for stakeholders' engagement, private sector, indigenous peoples, and for improved knowledge and management and sharing of knowledge products. Next slide, please. Of course, capacity building towards effective protected area management. As I've said, the engagement of indigenous and local communities in managing our shared resources. Combating marine debris in ASEAN. We had the Bangkok Declaration on combating marine debris, and as part of the mandate of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, we are promoting advocacy to reduce marine debris in oceans and seas. And of course, strengthening the AHP program, the AHP Secretariat in support of the 50 ASEAN heritage sites and the larger network of protected areas that we are supporting, including the flyway, the ASEAN Flyway Network sites in the conservation of migratory birds in our region. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are the key initiatives and regional cooperation programs that we are implementing in the ASEAN region to sustain the network of coastal and marine biodiversity protected areas. And with these regional platforms that I have outlined, the ASEAN Conference on Biodiversity, the ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference, and the continuous cooperation to manage the larger ecosystems of marine ecosystems and seascapes, we will continue our support with and collaboration with PEMC, IUCN, and other regional programs and organizations. in sustaining this network of marine protected areas, we do need this enhanced regional cooperation. And given the upcoming new post-2020 global biodiversity framework and the challenges that we face today, we look forward to continue this conversation with you all. And of course, we invite you to the 7th ASEAN Heritage Parks Conference in Indonesia. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. And we are #WeAreASEAN Biodiversity. Back to you, Tony.
Thank you so much, Ms. Arida, for sharing with us an overview of the flagship program of the ASEAN Heritage Parks program, and for showing us a few amazing photos of some of the parks as well. But I know you'd like to see more, as I surely would, so that we can catch even a glimpse of the beauty of these ASEAN Heritage Parks. Let's watch this.
First envisioned in 1978 as a group of national parks and nature reserves with outstanding wilderness and biodiversity values, the ASEAN Heritage Parks, or the AHP program, was established to highlight the importance of a select group of protected areas in regional and global efforts in biodiversity conservation. The AHPs were created through the ASEAN Declaration on Heritage Parks and Reserves in 1984, which named the first 11 protected areas listed under the AHP program. A new declaration on ASEAN Heritage Parks was issued in 2003, which recognized additional AHPs. ASEAN Heritage Parks are protected areas of high conservation importance, preserving a complete spectrum of representative ecosystems in the ASEAN region. These areas are established to generate greater awareness, pride, appreciation, enjoyment, and conservation of ASEAN's rich natural heritage through a regional network of representative protected areas, and to generate greater collaboration among ASEAN member states in preserving their shared natural heritage.
Can you imagine how proud the visitors of Singaporeans are when they come and learn that Sungai Buloh is a member of the ASEAN Heritage Park?
For a protected area to be an AHP, it has to meet a number of selection criteria, which include ecological completeness, representativeness, naturalness, high conservation importance, legally gazetted conservation area, has an approved management plan, transboundary, uniqueness, high ethnobiological significance, and importance for endangered or precious biodiversity.
Mountain Bigitan has been included in the network of ASEAN Heritage Parks of the ASEAN region, and it means that it's already part of the best protected areas in the ASEAN. To become an ASEAN Heritage Park, it has a lot also of benefits, while at the same time it has challenges to carry out in order to maintain the outstanding values.
The ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, or ACB, currently serves as the secretariat of the AHP program and the AHP committee, with representatives from the 10 AMS as members. The ASEAN Heritage Parks are the best of the best protected areas in the region, not only for its biodiversity richness, but also for the effective management of these areas as a result of cooperation and coordination among its stakeholders.
ရက်ရွာအနေနဲ့ကျတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအခုမှဘယ်လိုခေါ်မလဲဆိုတော့အချိန်ယူဆဲကာလလို့ပဲပြောရမှာပေါ့နော်ရက်ရွာကဒီပေါ်မှာတော့သူတို့နားလဲတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ထဲထဲဝင်ပူပေါင်းဖို့ကြတော့သူတို့မဖြစ်သေးဘူးပေါ့နော်သိပြီးတော့လိုက်ပြီးမချိန်နိုင်သေးဘူးဆိုတာတိတော့တိနေပြီတိနေပေမဲ့ဒါကိုသူတို့ကပြန်ပြီးတော့တန်းတနေတော့မှရှိသေးတယ်
The existence of AHPs gives us hope that by working together, we can ensure that our natural treasures will be sustained for the generations to come.
The
have it, ladies and gentlemen, the beauty of our ASEAN heritage parks, providing not just beauty, but life and so much hope for generations to come. If you have questions for Ms. Arida concerning ASEAN heritage parks, please feel free to send those questions in and we will read them just a bit later during the Q&A segment. Now, our next presenter is in charge of a variety of complementary coastal and freshwater wetlands, including the only legally gazetted wetland reserve in Singapore and a flyaway network site along the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership. Let me say that again, the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership. Let us welcome the director of the ASEAN Heritage Park Sungai Buloh Wetland Reserve, Ms. Yang Shu Fen.
Hi, everyone. A very good morning to everyone from warm Singapore. It was a really nice video. Thank you to Dr. Clarissa. So yes, we came from Sungai Buloh Wetland Reserve, one of the ASEAN Heritage Park. Very much thank you to the ASEAN Heritage Park Program and the generous support for sponsors and ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. Today, I wear a different hat, sharing about the ASEAN Flyway Network, a regional initiative on behalf of the ASEAN member countries of this network and our partners. Once again, I would like to thank the organizers today, PEMC and ACB, for inviting us to this important session, bringing the people together collectively to discuss on the coastal and marine biodiversity of the ASEAN region. Next slide, please. And I think the audience here today will be quite familiar with our geographical area and extent. In the context of Southeast Asia and the ASEAN region, it lies within various networks such as the PEMC. Another partnership that I'm showing on this map here includes the EAFP, the East Asian Australasian Flyway Partnership, looking at the conservation of migratory waterbirds that covers one of the largest and most diverse migratory flyway globally. And the ASEAN region lies right in the heart of this migratory flyway that takes place year after year without fail when the migratory birds migrate and escape from the harsh winters from the north to the south and vice versa. And hence, this particular network is about how birds and the wetlands connect us all together. Next slide, please. And just a little bit of background. Some of the ASEAN members of this particular partnership in the East Asia Australasian Flyway had discussed at 2 meetings in 2015 and 2017 on the need for a regional initiative in order for us to better focus together on the conservation efforts for our region. Hence, there was a recommendation that was agreed and adopted in 2017. And collectively, we put out a formal proposal with the help of ACB to seek endorsement at the ASEAN Working Group for Nature Conservation and Biodiversity. And coupled with it, we had an action plan of a proposal to be put up as well. Next slide, please. The framework consists of core members, where all the ASEAN member states are core members, and we've nominated national focal points. Preferably, the focal points will be working specifically in wetlands and on migratory waterbirds. And it also consists of non-core members, where we encourage partners on site, whether they are local level, at the national level, regional, and even international level. And we also welcome governmental, intergovernmental NGOs and academics to contribute so that we can collectively take into consideration this advice before the core members come to a consensus to make a decision. And next slide. So we agreed collectively as a network on 5 areas for our terms of reference. Number 1, which is really to facilitate cooperation and exchange of knowledge and experience, including best practices and expertise. And one of the key things that came out from a lot of the consultation is to be able to provide support and collaboration at site level for the managers in order for us to tackle the challenges of wetlands and the migratory birds conservation. And together with that, the network functions to coordinate and facilitate the implementation of activities when funding is available. And we also put out recommendations to the relevant ASEAN working groups, in particular for nature conservation and biodiversity and coastal marine environment. Collectively, this puts the Flyway Network in a good position for us to seek funding and partnership arrangements so that we can implement key activities for capacity building, for public awareness and outreach. Next, please. And we have also chosen a model that allows us to exist as a virtual network so that we are nimble and with little cost. And where funding is available, then we can do more. So the kind support of ACB and different member states have come together to host workshops, for example, when we rotate. And the network can also make recommendations to link up with other funding sponsors and grants that are available according to the needs of each site. And we also provide a brief of our activities on an annual basis to the meetings for ASEAN Working Group at various platforms. And we also go out to other networks like PEMC to share some of the work that we do and to explore other collaboration opportunities. Next, please. And I'm also very happy today to share that the ASEAN Flyway Network, our very first project, is fortunate to receive the generous funding support from Japan through the Japan ASEAN Integration Fund, JIFE, in 2017 to allow us to carry out some essential work to support some of the science-based policies that we would like to come up with. This project is known as Improving Biodiversity Conservation of Wetlands and Migratory Waterbirds. And this project is made possible by JIFE, JCB, and ASEAN member states. Next, please. So a budget of 2.1 million USD with Singapore as a lead with ACB, the East Asian Australasian Flyway Secretariat, international NGOs such as the Wetlands International, BirdLife International, providing us with inputs together with our ASEAN member states. We scoped this project into 4 main areas that you can see here. And that includes creating a functioning network, allowing us to tap on this funding to come together at different levels to discuss the needs of conservation for wetlands and migratory waterbirds. Then we also identify that addressing data gaps will be something very critical to allow us to quickly leverage up to see what do we need as a region. And the third one is really to look at capacity building to empower all the ground officers and the managers on the ground in order for them to better conserve wetlands and migratory waterbirds. The last one, but important one, would be to look at communications at all levels on education, participation, and awareness, which is CPA. So the project was endorsed and phase 1 has already started and completed. Next slide, please. So I'll just show you some outcome of how the network has come together with national focal points. These were some of the meetings, as well as the national level planning workshops for coordination that was also supported. I was really happy to join in some of these meetings to learn from different site managers, some of the challenges that they face on site, allowing us to better understand the needs of the region and learn some of the experiences and best practices that they had specific to this issue. And the next one, next slide. After we managed to establish the network, one of the key enabler of this project is to allow us to collect good information. And the funding was really used to support surveys of the Flyway Network sites in 3 areas. The known areas that are already Flyway Network sites, but we need to update them. We need to make sure that the data is accurate. The potential areas identified. And if you see on the map here, it says 950 plus important sites for migratory waterbirds. This was data that we collected from an international regional review. And therefore, there are many, many good sites, many of them along the coastal and marine areas in this area. This survey funding therefore helped us in activity 2.2 to look at the potential Flyway Network sites and The third activity also helps us to scan large coastal areas where we know that there are many of these areas that harbor rich biodiversity and populations of waterbirds, migratory waterbirds. A flyway network site can be submitted and nominated when you have this good information on site, allowing the country to nominate and submit the form. So this is how some of the information is used. Next slide, please. And activity 2.1 therefore looks at what were the existing network sites before we started the project in ASEAN. In 2017, before we started the project, there were 16 sites, and it includes coastal and freshwater wetlands, large and small. And a standard methodology was coordinated with an international expert with technical advice from Japan, Singapore, and other partners to provide us with a holistic, consistent approach to surveys and getting the information. And the next one, next slide, is what that was earlier explained. These are the potential sites, and we are very happy that there was good response from all the ASEAN member states, and they did their best to use the funding to look at very important areas. So these are the countries that contributed, and a lot of hard work was done on the ground. Then the next one, activity 2.3, really look at species-specific surveys and data collection so that we can actually pull the data together to look at what were the regional trends. And 4 countries with very rich areas, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and Vietnam, together with some of the experts from Japan, helped in this effort. Then, if we go to the next slide, as we reach only the tail end of only phase 1 of this project, I'm very pleased. I'd like to congratulate countries who already started and have nominated new sites to conserve these sites better, from Cambodia and Myanmar. And we also look forward to more sites coming as we work with the other ASEAN member states and experts to grow this network so that we can collectively better collaborate and protect the wetlands and the migratory waterbirds that it harbors. And going forward, which is my last slide, is, as you can see, the functioning network across different levels forms the core of this ASEAN Flyway network. And there are 3 key areas that we have scoped out as a network, addressing the data gaps. And from the phase 1 success, we are going to phase 2 now, looking into how we can actually come together as a region to share some of this data and to promote a long-term sustainable monitoring surveys. And phase 2 really comes from training the trainers, organizing national training workshops, and increasing the capacity by opening different types of sessions, for example, bird identification, satellite tracking, wetlands ecology and management. So what we have done is to engage the various focal points at their working levels to find out what were the specific skill sets that they will need in order for them to better conserve their sites at their level. Another key thing that also arose was SIPA. What if we had come together as a region to share some of this good communication, education, participation, awareness programs that would really help us. And all this, as you can see, also relies on funding. So going forward, we'll also be leveraging on existing establishments, looking at interested partners to work with us to support different parts of these plans. And we really look forward to working with every one of you. And feel free to contact me. Going to the last slide. That's my email at the end. And we welcome any collaborations or questions about the network that you might link up with other members of the ASEAN Flyway network as well. Once again, let me thank ACB or ASEAN Focal Points for their hard work in putting this relatively new network together, as well as the EAFP for their support and our generous donation from Japan. Most of all, allowed me to thank the participants for listening in, and hashtag we are ASEAN Biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Yang. Oh my goodness, I love it. Everybody today is really doing the hashtag. That's me again as well. Hashtag we are ASEAN Biodiversity, supporting all the way to 2030 and beyond. And thank you, Ms. Yang, for talking about our migratory species, or actually the ASEAN Flyway Network, or the East Asian Australasian Flyway. This also gets personal to us as volunteers because we do clean the Las Piñas Parañaque critical habitat and ecotourism area in the Philippines, and it is a protected area. And one of our actually treats whenever we're there, which is also heartbreaking, is there are so many different migratory birds there with us as we are cleaning so much plastic pollution coming from everywhere. And I learned that it is actually visited by up to 43 different species of migratory birds, which was so amazing to all of us and gave us more reason to protect our precious biodiversity. Again, if you have any questions for our speakers, please send those in through the Q&A box in Zoom or comment section in Facebook Live. We'll be having the Q&A in just a bit. Our next presenter is a marine biologist with 16 years extensive experience working in small island states of the South Pacific, such as Fiji, Papua New Guinea, and Solomon Islands in coastal fisheries, focusing in biological monitoring and marine resource management. Presently, he is Technical Program Senior Manager at the Regional Secretariat of the Coral Triangle Initiative on coral reefs, fisheries, and food security. Let us all welcome Dr. Gregory Bennett.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. It is an honor for me to present on behalf of the Regional Secretary on this transboundary approach in Asia. Just a quick outline on my presentation. Global outlook on coral reef, marine resource facts on the CTI-CFF region. Just a brief introduction to CTI-CFF and the regional plan of action, and examples of MPA networks, connectivity, and future projects, and the city impasse and way forward. 18 days ago, a report was published stating the continued rise of sea temperature. This was it was noted that the sharp incline in the coral reef covered correspond with rapid increase in water sea temperature, indicate the vulnerability to temperature spikes, and found that this phenomena is likely to increase as the planet continues to rise. So what is this to do with the CTI-CFF? Looking at the facts and some of the numbers that previous colleagues have already present, this region has one of the biggest diversity. Just look at the number of coral reefs, the region number of mangrove, spawning aggregation to nurseries to tuna, etc. And just a colorful slide just to show how significant this region is in terms of the contribution to the biodiversity. It was enormous, particularly there are more than 80 threatened species, seagrass species, you have 12 to 15 species, etc. Just a background to this regional CTI-CFF, it was formed in 2009, multilateral partnership with 6 countries. The setup was basically 6 members countries: Indonesia, Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, Philippines, Solomon Islands, Timor-Leste. The National Coordinating Committee was different for different ministries within the countries, and also we have strategy partners associated with this, and also collaborators and university partnership. The regional plan of action, when it was formed 10 years ago, it has 5 goals. And these 5 goals have 5 technical working groups. With that, it's so interesting because within this region, there's a lot of population connectivity networks. you look at the diagram just in front of you, you can see on A, the coral, B, the damsel, and the unknown fish. So this area itself is cater for a lot of different diversity. Let me just go on with some examples of the transboundary marine protected networks. And in particular, I would like to focus for this presentation on the marine turtles, which was formed in 2009. The Tri-National Committee was from the Sulawesi Marine Region. This is the ASEAN countries that form the region of the Coral Triangle Initiative. And basically, it recognized the need to have a joint shared marine resources, identify the establishment of the marine turtle protected area among the key through transboundary cooperation. That said, following the expiration of the memorandum, the initiative was continued under the Coral Triangle Initiative, given that the Sulawesi is a recognized priority seascape in the Coral Triangle plan of action. So just to give some examples of the countries that are heavily participate on this, in particularly the 3 countries from the Sulawesi seascape. In Indonesia, we have the Belau Marine Protected Area. In Malaysia, the Turtle Island Park, Tumustan Park, and Sugun Island Marine Conservation Area. And in Philippines, we have the Taytay Managed Resource Protected Area, Turtle Island Wildlife Sanctuary, and the Tubaha Reef Natural Park. Just to show you a quick map of the areas that where this initiative has been done and work have been carried in the past. So in 2018, there was a meeting that bring together the members from the Sulawesi seascape, and it was towards establishing a transboundary coordination mechanism for the Sulawesi seascape and the review of the Sulawesi EFM plan. Some of the recommendations that came up from the meeting, in particular these two that highlight the need to facilitate the establishment of a regional and tri-national MPA to follow up with capacity needs assessment, result to share and present discussion. And with partners, it was envisioning strengthening transboundary cooperation within the region towards the protection of marine turtle habitats and fisheries management. Some of the future projects related to these MPA networks and sites, connectivity issues, I just want to highlight 3. One is the CTI CFF UQ, University of Queensland GEF proposal, named Seascape Approach to Securing Coral Reef Fisheries and Biodiversity Resources in the Sulawesi Seascape. Second one was the WWF EU Ocean Governance. And the third was for short SOMACO, which is an ZIZ and strategic partners. I'll just go briefly to just explain these 3 projects. So traditionally, the design of marine protected area is an extent of the use of MPAs in Asia Pacific for reef fisheries resource management. Example, to identify fisheries replenishment zones. Now, the advent of connected data has allowed the MPAs to be improved so that the protection can be direct to the source reefs that maintain the flow of new fish to important grounds. Furthermore, the design of MPAs is a keystone reefs for coral recovery, that are protected to maintain high habitat quality as well as creating fisheries development zone, reinforce food security and underpinning livelihood. Just to show you a diagram to illustrate what I just mentioned about the example, this is a colorful picture that explains the healthy reef, a damaged reef. Also within the boundary, you'll note that there's country A and country B, and then the coordination of connectivities. For the coral triangle, the ecological network is involved in coral spawning. So this diagram illustrates the support for habitat quality and also the reef fisheries species. The other project that I want to mention here was the WWF Coral Triangle Program. For short, it's called Ocean Governance and Protecting and Restoring Marine Ecosystem Capacity, catalysts for building peace and security and fostering sustainable economics, Southeast Asia and Atlantic Ocean Basin. This is a collaboration between the 3 countries from the Southeast Asia in the Coral Triangle region. There are 4 components on this project. However, I like to just highlight the 2 important components which involve transboundary cooperation and transboundary protection initiative parks and transboundary agreement. The next one is the solution for marine coastal resilience in the Coral Triangle region, for short, SOMACOA, GIZ, and W. Now, the aim is to support further development and adaptation and implementation of seascape general model in the regional framework for priority seascapes. As you know, there were 3 seascapes within the CTI CFF, the Sulawesi, the Lesser Sunda, and the Bismarck Salmon Sea. Now, this program will strengthen the resilience of the region ecosystem and communities in selecting transboundary seascape. Furthermore, it will reflect in the measures and activities of each country and seascape, which will include advice and development and implementation of sectoral strategies and actions, and the promotion of cross-sectoral cooperation on local and national, and also scaling of successful pathways. Not forgetting knowledge sharing and joint learning, capacity building, technical support, policy advocate that will be promoted to replica of good practices. One of the things that I like to highlight in this presentation is the Coral Triangle Marine Protected Area System. The CTM Pass, it comprises of a range of MPAs that exist within the Coral Triangle region. The spectrum includes large national MPAs and also marine parks, as well as small community-based LMMAs. This table illustrates the round 1 nomination of the CTM Pass nominee. As you see on your right, this is the category 3 and 4. This category 3 and 4 must go through a regional level process conducted with a regional advisory team. This was done in 2014. And in 2015, just to verify the second round, and I highlighted the 3 countries from the ASEAN. The category 3 and 4 basically priority development sites and also the flagship sites. These include large, already effective management sites that have been regional, ecological, governance, and socio-economic importance. These are 10 non-regrade sites that are agreed important within the system. I mentioned that in order to get to 3 and 4, there's a regional advisory group. And so listed on this table are members that the CTI CFF have reached out to them to go through the process. Lastly, but not the least, you will note that the proposed city and pass roadmap for third round nomination which is for 2022. And in January, we were hoping to do the announcement, April's submission by national coordinating committees of nomination of documents, and May and June review of the process by the City and Pass External Review Committee. And August and September, the recognition, confirmation of the third round for regional significant MPAs. Just to conclude, way forward, cooperation closer within member countries, partners, and other stakeholders on the connectivity and transboundary issues of reef, fish, and relevant resources and services. We also need capacity building for the stakeholders in the transboundary and connectivity issues and management. Lastly, the relevant technical working groups to be strengthened. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bennett. And I'm sure all of you have a few questions that you'd like to ask our guests to answer live in just a bit. So make sure, don't be shy to send them in, and we shall have them answered by our special guests and panelists. Now, our last presenter is well-versed in coral reef ecology and integrated coastal management with more than 15 years of experience working with USAID projects and environmental NGOs. Presently, he is the regional project manager for the Arafura Timor Seas Ecosystem Action Plan, which is a project being undertaken by the UNDP, GEF, and PEMC. May I call on Dr. Handoko Adi Susanto.
Thank you, Ms. Tony Taus. Good morning, everyone. I hope my audio is clear enough. Distinguished panelists, speakers, webinar committee, all participants. Thank you, SCB and PEMC for having me. I'm going to speaking to you today about the designing a resilient MPA network in the Arafura and Timor Seas. I'm Handoko, currently the regional project manager, as introduced by moderator. So the X2 project, briefly, is the second phase of the Arafura and Timor Seas ecosystem action programs, regional partnership involving 4 countries, Indonesia, Timor-Leste, PNG, and Australia. The objective is to collectively manage high marine and fisheries resources in the Arafura and Timor Seas region. The project is a global environment facility funded program, managed and executed under the and then PEMC is an implementing partners and responsible for the regional and PNG component. A key mandate of the project is to support the implementations of the ETS SAPs toward collaborative regional collaborative mechanism. So the ETS SAP provide the key framework for the region to address transboundary issues. So the visions and implementation of a SAP also contribute to bigger goals and commitments at the international level, such as SDG, IG target, as well as also SDSC. Also mentioned by Dr. Padilla, so the Arafura and Timor Seas are part of the North Australian Shelf Large Marine Ecosystem, or LME. This is a tropical marine area located between the Pacific and Indian Ocean. The regions extend from the Timor Sea to the Torres Strait and include the Arafura Seas and Gulf of Carpentaria. The ATS region contains both near pristine and highly threatened coastal and marine ecosystem, which play important ecological and economic roles in the four nations. So the ATS region is home to a vast array of natural wonders, such as coral and reefs, mangrove, seagrass, and then also charismatic, threatened, and migratory species. Marine ecosystem of the ATS regions also provide important goods and services, such as food and livelihood from fisheries, aquaculture, marine tourism, coastal protection, medicinal product, and also carbon sequestration. However, a variety of anthropogenic factors threaten marine resources in the ATS region, such as illegal, unreported, and unreported fishing, bycatch, unsustainable harvesting, and climate change. Marine debris and marine plastics, mentioned by many here, and pollutions originating from marine activities such as oil and gas exploration and extraction, fishing, and shipping pose additional hazard to marine life. As a consequence, globally returns of coastal marine megafauna are at risk. So MPA can be powerful tools to address local threats and protect biodiversity, maintain fisheries productivity, and increase ecosystem resilience to change in climate and ocean chemistry. They can also help maintain food security and sustainable livelihood for communities and other stakeholders. However, MPA can only achieve their objective if they are well designed and managed effectively. While there are many existing or proposed MPA in the Arafura and Timor Seas, not take large-scale pattern of biophysical, economic, and cultural consideration into account, such as a region-wide pattern of connectivity of fisheries, charismatic, rare, threatened, and protected species, and transboundary use and trade. So therefore, there is a need for the four countries in the ATS region to work together to design a regional scale of MP network. So HC2 project engage CTC Foundation and then YECAN Foundation, Indonesian's the Nature Conservancy affiliations, and then with support from Dr. Alison Green to design a resilience network of MPA for the ATS regions, an area about 1.6 million hectares. Our approach is to conduct marine gaps analysis by considering existing and proposed MPA and area of interest for the potential UMPA in each of the four countries. Because the speed of the COVID-19, so we are using the best available science, data, and MPA design practices to identify potential gap in the MPA network throughout. We apply 5 steps here for the MPA network designs, refer to the Green et al. In 2020. Step 1, define goal and SMART objective, aligning with the HC2 goals on the protect key marine species, recover and sustain fisheries, restore degraded habitats for sustainable provision of ecosystem services, adapt to climate change impact, and ensure prosperity of the coastal people. And then the second steps is define design criteria to achieve a goal and objective. For example, in this case, for the biophysical, aim at achieving ecological objective by taking key biological and physical processes into account. And then the steps compile data needed to apply design criteria. This is, I think, one of the most challenging one when we like to compile all the data. So we had advice, data, and input from many our partner, our colleague, especially from YECAN, from CTC, and other NGOs, and also USAID project, also from MC, of course. And then also we receive also data from government representative and scientists in each of the 4 countries. And then also we do the national and regional consultations. And then also, of course, from the other specialists, especially on the climate change and turtles. And then also from this step, we collected, refined, validated about, I think, 304 of the best available spatial data layer. Again, 304 spatial data layers, including 246 biophysical data layers, and then also 58 socioeconomic cultural host layer, we call it. And then the 4th step is design MPA and MPA network using a systematic conservation planning tools, Maxan, and spatial analysis. This slide to show you the result of MPA network design for the ATS regions. This was the first iteration of an MPA network design for the ATS regions that include all 93 existing and proposed MPAs allocated in the national spatial plans, with total area more than 271 square kilometer, and then also 20 areas of interest. We call it AOIs, with AOIs for establishing new MPAs identified in the previous MPA design process in Indonesia and Timor-Leste, with a total more than 29 square kilometer. The total AOIs and the existing and proposed MPAs all more than 300 square kilometer. This map showing the revised version of the draft of MPA network designs after we receive inputs and comments from key stakeholders via regional and national consultation. We presented the data layer, analysis, and draft MPA network design, and then for review by the government representatives, scientists, NGOs, in both national and regional level. Following the workshops, we refine and modify the data layer, analysis, and design based on their advices. Particularly, I think during the workshop, also we receive data, and then we refine the data using the upwellings as a conservation feature. Let's look at the information or update from each country from this design. For Indonesia, for example, here, so the government of Indonesia has set a target for marine conservation by 10% of their territorial waters. So they set a target about 32.5 million hectares by 2030. And then currently, I think I had information from the government of Indonesia has established 28.1 million hectare of MPA, or equal to 8.6% of Indonesia territorial marine waters. The results here in the right. So some gaps in MPA coverage for some conservation target. The analysis indicate that inclusion of 3 more areas will address these gaps. Actually, here in the legends, it's quite detailed, And then from this design, we identify 8 AOIs with a total 18,000 square kilometers, 5 AOI from the previous design, and 3 area of interest from post design. And then for the Timor-Leste here, Timor-Leste country has completed a national ecological data gap analysis, which included an assessment of marine ecological gap in the protected area networks. The results show some gap also in MPA coverage for some conservation target. The analysis indicates that the inclusion of 2 more areas will address these gaps. And then from these designs, we identify 10 existing MPAs with total 1,000 square kilometer, 10 AOIs with totals more than 9,000 square kilometer. For Australia, here, Australian government has already has MPA network at both national and state level. There are also indigenous protected areas. The results show some gaps in MPA coverage for some conservation target. The analysis also indicates that the inclusion of 2 more areas will address in these gaps, especially in the Adel Island and then Fox Peninsula. The result here later will be shared to the related institution and government for their considerations and in the future planning. In case of PNG, PNG already has 2 existing MPA with total area around 900 square kilometer. And then from these designs, we does not recommend any additional MPA in PNG water around the South Fly district of the Western province. And then this is to conclude my talk that these activities or study or design is the first iterations of the MPA network design for the entire ASEAN regions, built on the existing MPAs and then also marine spatial plans from each country. Yeah. We use the best available data and best practices to identify gaps in existing MPA network to first ensure adequate representation of shallow in deep water and conserve critical areas, consider the connectivity, maximize benefit, and then consider climate change vulnerability assessment. Even though this is the first iterations with some limitations, the analysis managed to achieve target while minimizing the impact of resource utilization such as capture fisheries, oil and gas mining, shipping, etc. Some point going forward, how to make it even better, including future or further actions. There are some points here. The first, that some OIs may need to be validated, to ensure they will provide the expected benefit for the MPA network. And a proposal for new MPAs will need to be discussed appropriately with local stakeholders. Since completing our design, feedback from the countries indicate that the 7 new areas of interest identified in the study, 2 are being considered as potential areas for new MPA, especially in Australia, in Adel Island and Fox Peninsula. Also, I don't know, in the next time, in the future, I think we would like to conduct more detailed and comprehensive stakeholder consultations in each of 4 countries, and then zoning all MPAs in the region using scientific design criteria and compiling the zoning plan in a regional database. This can then be used to refine the design of the MPA networks. And the last one, addressing research priorities to refine the design, particularly regarding modeling and mapping connectivity, larva, fishing pressure, and impact of climate change on key habitat and species throughout the region. That's all of my talks. Thank you for your attention. Over to you, Ms. House.
Thank you so much, Dr. Susanto, We are truly grateful for that very, very insightful presentation. And guess what, everyone? It is time for our Q&A segment. So for those of you that have sent in your questions, they're about to be answered in just a bit. We'll go directly to it. Our first question is from Wu Hai Dang to Ms. Clarissa Arida. The question is there any monitoring mechanism at the ASEAN level for management of the ASEAN heritage parks? And can an ASEAN heritage park be delisted as a sanction for bad management by the ASEAN member state? Once again, this is from Wu Hai Dang for Ms. Clarissa Arida.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Wu Hai Dang, for your very important query. The ASEAN Center for Biodiversity indeed is monitoring the ASEAN heritage parks, and we actually request the ASEAN heritage parks managers to submit their regular reports. And yeah, let me just check your other question. Yes, you have also touched on other aspects. Can you repeat that, Tony?
Yes, ma'am. The other question is, aside from the monitoring of the management, of the level of management, can the ASEAN Heritage Park be delisted as a sanction for bad management?
We have been discussing this at the ACB as the Secretariat of the ASEAN Heritage Park. And what we are doing is reviewing the current 50 ASEAN Heritage Parks. As I have mentioned earlier, there is an ongoing review of the regional action plan. And this has been highlighted in terms of, well, not exactly the word is not the listing because we do not have that policy yet. But this is something that we can look into in the current review of the listed AHP sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clarissa Arida. Our next question is for Dr. Jose Padilla. Dr. Padilla, the question for you is, what have been the most successful cases or lessons learned in engaging multi-country engagement in implementing LME-level conservation? And how can we expand the role of the private sector and the coastal communities in addressing the threats in the LMEs, especially in addressing biodiversity loss, plastic pollution, and ocean acidification? Wow, those are a lot of amazing points. We'll give the chance to Dr. Padilla to answer that question.
Thank you to the question, and thank you, Tony, for reading it out. I think there's a lot of parts to that question. I don't know how to respond to that, but maybe with respect to the initiatives on large marine ecosystem management, what has happened is that the support that has been provided by the GEF and implemented by the GEF implementing agencies, including UNDP and UNEP, the projects have provided a forum for discussions of shared environmental concerns. Countries, for instance, have agreed to put in place a regional coordination mechanism to discuss issues and to agree on the implementation of the strategic action program that are part of the LME projects. And this has continued even after the project has been completed. And we have seen this in the Yellow Sea and also in the East Asia, and PEMC has become originated from a UNDP GEF project into what it is now as a intergovernmental organization. The participation of different stakeholders is important. For instance, the private sector is a key partner. If you look at the threats to the LMEs, for example, nutrient loading, these are primarily coming from domestic waste, from industrial waste, from commercial waste. For commercial and industrial waste, they're coming from the private sector. Usually the solution is, putting in place wastewater treatment plants where the private sector and local government units, play an important role. Ecotourism is a big activity within marine protected areas in LMEs, and tourism is driven also by the private sector. We have seen private sector playing an important role in specific areas of awareness raising in some protected areas, particularly the Tuba-Tahar Reef National Park and elsewhere. What else? The other part of the question I don't remember, but as I said, multi-stakeholder participation is key to the success of initiatives in LMEs. Perhaps, if I may say, what's the most crucial is the willingness of the countries to work together, looking beyond what affects them within their national borders and what they share as to what the issues that are common to them that need to be addressed together. Over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Padilla. You actually were able to address the question that was asked so wonderfully. And thank you again for emphasizing how valuable and important it is for us to work in partnership and to work together. Our next question is for Ms. Yang. The question is, how are migratory species protected at a global level? And are there similar initiatives outside of ASEAN that are doing this? You may also turn on your camera if you'd like, Ms. Yang.
Can you see? Yeah. Thank you for the question. Yes, globally, actually, the migratory pathway, which we call the East Asian Australasian Flyway, there are about 10 recognized flyways of the world. And each region, typically, they do have a regional initiative, but not all. And some of them that we know of are like in the African flyways, the Eurasian. I think I mentioned, and some of them, they do have successful small regional initiatives. One of the critical ones that are in really international attention is this particular flyway that we are in, which includes, it includes what is one of the largest, few millions of migratory waterbirds use this flyway. It's one of the most diverse, as it's not surprising. It is also one of the regions where it has one of the largest number of threatened species. Yeah, so if the conservation actions do not kick in the next decade, there are many migratory waterbird species that are at risk of extinction. Yeah, and one of them that commonly known is the spoonbill sandpiper, where they are known to have less than 200 to 300 breeding individuals in the wild. And this ASEAN region is an important transit where these birds have to make their migratory pathway every year without fail. And they are refueling stopovers. And some of the good regional initiatives are also done in Africa, and in Eurasia. So the ASEAN Flyway Network is a really small springboard initiative that we hope to grow to help the region. Yeah, so I hope it answers the question. We can follow up with an email if you need more examples. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Yang. Really, truly, those are details and facts that have inspired me and many other volunteers to keep working towards conservation and protection of our biodiversity, and of course, the communities that rely on them. So thank you for sharing that once again. And our next question goes to Dr. Gregory Bennett. Dr. Bennett, you mentioned capacity building in the way forward of your presentation. What kind of capacities are these, and how could they contribute to effective transboundary management? That is the question for you, Dr. Bennett.
Thank you for raising that question. So within the city Coral Triangle region, there are 3 countries from the Asian, 3 countries from the Pacific, and one of the gaps that we've seen within the differences was particularly through the different seascapes. And so basically what we tried to look at was the emphasis of having a scale-up approach where countries that are still trying their very best to pick up, given it's a regional program, to join in these initiatives. And so this is one of the capacity building where CTI-CFF is looking at strengthening that region from the countries that are pretty much, lack of capacity, lack of resources. And so using that approach to put them all in the same platform. I hope I answered that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bennett. You surely did. Our next question is for Dr. Handoko. And the question is, how can we fast track addressing the gaps in MPA coverage for some conservation targets given the various intervening issues that the countries are facing? Once again, for Dr. Handoko, how can we fast track addressing the gaps in MPA coverage for some conservation targets given the various intervening issues that the countries are facing?
Thank you for the questions. Yeah.
You may also turn on your camera if you'd like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think, thank you for the question. I think, of course, when we identifying the gaps of the MPA network, I think the first using the scientific design, scientific background about what we would like to conserve. For example, if we would like to conserve the marine turtles, of course, we need to understand about the marine turtles' migratory route, marine turtles' life cycles, where they get food, where they live, and so on. And then, of course, actually, based on many reference, we have guidance on how to design the MPA network, on how to identify the gaps, and so on. Of course, as I mentioned before, this is quite challenging, due to the pandemic. We cannot travel, we cannot do field observation and so on. But then we use all the information, especially the existing MPAs, and then also the, from many reports and so on. I think about some guidance, actually, the representativeness, and other things and related to the climate change and larva dispersal and so on. But basically, it's like between one to another MPA, for example, the distance around 20 to 100 kilometers, for example. Something like that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Susanto. Thank you very, very much. And we really, truly wish we had more time for other questions. But I have one final question for our panelists, but we are not done. We still have another part of our program today, which is also very special. So stay tuned for that. Now, one final question for our speakers for the first part of our program. Challenges remain and keep increasing, from climate change to biodiversity loss, continuous damage from pollution, undelivered commitments to a number of global targets by most nations, and so much more. How do you remain positive that we can achieve all that we hope for? And I feel like this is a question for each of you, both on a professional level, but also as citizens of the Earth and the ASEAN region as well. And we welcome answers from any of our speakers, whoever would like to respond. And you may also turn on your camera. Thank you very much. Maybe I could, oh, there you go. Thank you, Dr. Susanto.
Sorry, can you repeat the questions?
With all the challenges that we've discussed, the question is, how do you remain positive that we can achieve all that we hope for, you know, both as a professional and a citizen of the ASEAN and the world?
I think so. Of course, we have to stay positive. We have to be optimistic in, we are all, the environmentalists, the conservationists. we need to stay positive, of course. I mean, related to climate change, of course, the climate change is really occur, and there are many evidence. But then I think by conserving, by protecting marine biodiversity, we optimistic that we can adapt with the climate change. I think many studies also indicated what you call it, the positive roles of protecting biodiversity against the climate change, I think. So by protecting the biodiversity, for example, more diverse of the coral reef will be more resilient to climate change, for example. So let's conserve the coastal resources or coastal habitats. Then I think so we can able to address the climate change impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Susanto. If any of the other speakers would like to share one final message regarding that question of hope, maybe Ms. Clegg.
I can, yeah.
Oh, there you go, Dr. Padilla. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, I think that's a very good question. And really, you know, it strikes us all because of the situation that seems to be hopeless. But I think we need to be hopeful and stay positive. Otherwise, you know, the problem will just worsen. You know, where the successes lie in what we are doing are at the community level. We have seen quite a few of those marine protected areas, marine reserves, and so on, you know, getting a lot of traction within communities. So my sense is support the grassroots organizations, you know, in making things happen, and we can upscale that. Those lessons learned and, you know, replicate it in other areas. And, you know, we can observe a sea change, hopefully, by supporting a grassroots organization. We already have mechanisms at the national and the regional levels to bring together these successes and to bring about dialogues on shared environmental concerns. And definitely the experiences on the ground will be useful in guiding you know, our discussions at the national and regional level. So the hope is there. Let's just you know, soldier on, and hopefully we can see a huge difference in the future. Over.
Thank you so much, Dr. Padilla, for ending our Q&A in such a wonderful and hopeful and positive way. And truly also for mentioning the power of supporting a grassroots initiative from local communities to women, to our youth, to our fisher folk, to our farmers, and so much more. Even speaking of indigenous peoples who represent 5% of the world, but protect 80% of the world's biodiversity. There is so much to really be said and valued about that. Thank you once again to everyone that sent in their questions. And before we proceed to the next part of our event, we are going to have a 5-minute breather. And for that, the ACB has prepared a video that we can enjoy during the break. Let's all watch this.
Welcome to the sea. My name is Niente. I'm from Malamyai, Myanmar.
Hi everyone, my name is Nadia and I'm from Jakarta, Indonesia.
Hi, I'm Srilo Ignacio Jr. I am from General Santos City, Philippines.
Mark from Kuching, Malaysia.
I'm Thong from Vietnam.
Tang Po Chai from Cambodia.
I'm Andy from the central part of Laos.
Konsawan Kitila. I'm now living and working in Salawan Province, southern Laos.
I'm from Nantapani, Thailand.
Hi, I am Zira. I am from Lake District of Brunei Darussalam.
Talayana Rasedakun from Thailand.
Hi everyone, my name is Elliot James Ong and I'm from Singapore. I think it is so important for us to protect our oceans because they are a very important source of food and livelihood.
As a Filipino living in an archipelagic country like Philippines, a big chunk of our population depends on the coastal and marine resources for livelihood.
It provides us food, jobs, a place for recreation, and home for the species.
My country that has not a border with the sea or the ocean like others.
But I'm still concerned about the ocean because it's the area of many different species.
Seafoods, especially lobster, tuna, salmon, and octopus.
Ocean is like a blood for our Earth. It is a life support system for all creatures.
It is a fundamental block in sustaining life.
Ocean, the source of the life. Everything is come from the ocean.
The ocean play a key role in water cycle. It evaporating and watering all the life on land.
And ocean drives climate, weather, temperature, and one of the largest oxygen producing ecosystem on Earth.
If we abuse this will not only affect the lives of these fishermen, the lives of those living in the coastal communities, but also the Filipino population as a whole.
In Myanmar, a lot of fishers are small-scale fishers. That's why they need to depend on the sea.
It's not just our lives are depending on it. Everyone else's, all the marine animals, and all the small things that you can't see in the water, in seawater, they all depend on it, and it all makes up an ecosystem, a cycle.
If the ocean have the problems, what will happen with my seafood?
Many species will lose their home, and then we will lose the biodiversity, lost the beautiful coral.
No more tourists come to the island because it's nothing to see. Then it affects the people job as well. So it's time to protect it before we lose it all.
As a young biodiversity leadership, I want to convey that to solve the problem for the sea, we need to collaborate with the local fishers and local community to protect our beautiful ocean.
I hope that in this super year for biodiversity, our world leaders will realize that it's so important for us to protect the plants and animals that we share this earth with.
I hope that decisions made will be inclusive and beneficial for all. I also hope that the decisions will be holistic to ensure all processes are accountable and goals measurable.
I hope the 10-year plan is going to be achievable.
It is important to bring together all the nations to enhance the protection of the ocean and other ecosystems.
I'd like to request for your support is the transformative education opened the space for young people not only in school but anyone who would like to learn about the environment, to have the knowledge to live sustainably and live in harmony with them. Not only the financial supports for young people, because young people have very limited sources of income to take their own innovative idea into action.
It would be great if this message helps young generation work together with the government to find the best sustainable way to solve this problem.
My message to our leaders, please include us, the role of the youth in biodiversity issues.
Involve us both in groundwork and to decision-making process, because sometimes being aware is not enough. We must act as soon as possible, and we as young people can help you with that.
We are known to be very innovative. We are adaptive to technology, and we are more than ever capacitated.
The healthier the ocean, the healthier the earth, the healthier we and our children are.
And there you have it, our ASEAN youth biodiversity leaders. And speaking of hope, that really brings so much hope to the future, and not just for the future, but for today. But also, we want to remember that this is something that they are also fighting for so dearly. And we hope that we can do our part to support a more beautiful future with thriving biodiversity across the world and the ASEAN region. Welcome back to our virtual event on managing networks and transboundary cooperation on marine protected areas in the ASEAN region, which is made possible through the partnership between PEMC and the ACB. Before the break, we heard our invited speakers discuss the impressive work that their organizations are doing to benefit coastal and marine habitats in the ASEAN region. Now, let us get to know more about the wonderful initiatives that are being implemented by various groups through poster presentations. Let us start off with the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard. And to present this, may I call on the Director of the Biodiversity Information Management Unit of the ACB, Dr. Arvin Diezmos.
Hello, Tony. Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can see you very clearly.
Yes. Tony, thank you. Thank you for that introduction, and it's always nice to hear to see you. So let me share my screen now. My slides. All right. So good morning, everyone. And it's a great pleasure to join you in this international congress. Thanks again to PEMC for co-organizing this international congress, and congratulations. My name is Arvin C. Diasmas, and I'm also representing the ASEAN Biodiversity, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. And I will be presenting to you the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard, which is an online platform that we developed at ACB in partnership with the European Union and NatureServe. The ASEAN Dashboard, Biodiversity Dashboard, is an interactive knowledge management platform that serves as a repository of biodiversity data and relevant information, and features data visualization, geographical information system, and indicators reporting capabilities to support the conservation activities and initiatives of ASEAN member states in the ASEAN region, of course. Data is officially sourced from ASEAN countries, global databases, publications, and so forth. And in particular, it also acts as a target tracker to measure progress of ASEAN countries vis-a-vis the Convention on Biological Diversity, or IHE targets, the Sustainable Development Goal targets, and including those that are being planned for the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. The dashboard is being managed and maintained by ACB, and especially by personnel from the dedicated personnel from the Biodiversity Information Management Unit. The dashboard offers a wide spectrum of important biodiversity data, from species to geographical distributions to habitats, vegetation types, and protected areas. For just to mention some. It covers, and allow us to emphasize this, it covers both terrestrial and marine ecosystems. For instance, the dashboard, you can find that the information data points to more than 380,000 species occurrences in the ASEAN region in the dashboard. And you can also find mangrove habitats, for example, the extent and coverage of this important type of vegetation. We also have information data points for instance, 15,000 fish, 26,000 records of mollusks, 8,000 crustaceans, and detailed and descriptive and geographical information on a total of 468 marine protected areas in the region. We at ACB are continuously growing data and information, and we have also included, in a very timely manner, features like zoonosis outbreaks and avian flyway networks, which this part is actually being led by one of the units at ACB, the PDI unit. And moreover, the dashboard showcases important information on biodiversity conservation areas in the region. For example, Director Risa Arida has presented to you the ASEAN Heritage Parks, of which there are currently 50, but again, this is continuously growing, the number. And we have actually, in the ASEAN region, more than 2,600 protected areas. Actually, that's quite a lot now. And globally recognized key biodiversity areas, which is a program of the IUCN, of which there are 1,150 such areas across the region. So you will find the dashboard to be quite data rich and quite appealing, actually. And we believe that the dashboard would entice the generation of the millennials and the Gen Zers, because it's highly visual and graphic. And in summary, it is a rich source of up-to-date biodiversity data information from the ASEAN region, covering all the 10 member states. And the data is sourced from official avenues, for example, from AMS themselves, from publications, from the ASEAN Biodiversity Outlook, so on and so forth. And ACB is doing its best for ongoing enhancements and updates. So the data is actually real time, and we are doing our best to improve it more. And most importantly, the dashboard, the information found in there, the data is publicly available and it's open access. So please visit the dashboard, especially you young folks out there. Thank you for listening, and check out the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard. Just key in the dashboard in your browser. And with that, thank you, Tony, for this slot. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Dr. Diezmos. Thank you very, very much. Our next presenters will share with us Transboundary Park initiatives. First, to present on the initiatives in Indonesian seas, we have from the Wakatobi National Park, Miss Arista Setyaningrum.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you see me clearly?
Yes, good morning. We see you.
Okay, I will share to my screen right now. Okay, let's begin. Thank you, Ms. Antonia. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us to share about our work in Wakatobi. And first, let me introduce about a little bit introduction about Wakatobi National Park. We are the second largest national park of 54 national parks in Indonesia, with more than 1,320,000 hectare area, which is 97% is a marine area. We have 8 conservation targets that consist of essential ecosystem and biodiversity and Wakatobi. Okay, this is the main topic of that we talk about today. National Park in Indonesia use zonation system to conserve the ecosystem. Each zone has a specific function. Okay, this is from the right map, display the zonation of Wakatobi National Park. You can see in the red color on the corner is a main or the core zone that represent all of 8 conservation targets in Wakatobi. The largest zone shown in the brown color, this is a local utilization zone. This zone accommodates locals to use marine resources within a conservation area to fulfill their needs, but in a traditional way or stay on a conservation value. Activity that allow in this zone is like traditional fishing, traditional cultivation, and a mangrove nursery. Like so in the left map, that's shown about the seaweed cultivation that are commonly found in Wakatobi. The local use it for seaweed cultivation, and each year the seaweed farmer can get tons of seaweed that can sell dry to other countries. Okay, the right map. I'm sorry, I'm back to the previous slide. The right map also shows the local use. They practically avoid the main zone on the right and the blue color, because that zone is a protected area or no-take zone. This is a provide to visit to reproduce and grow. And then The human activity in this area very limited to prevent the destruction of the environment. In the marine protected zone, or you can see the blue color, the fishing not allowed in this place. And also, the dot of the map is display about the local activity, and all of that in the local utilization zone. So the locals people understand about this donation system. The donation system also manage tourism activity to support a sustainable tourism by regulated tourism zone. And this map shown on the green color. We give opportunity for tourism investment for commercial business by two kinds of permit. The first is specific permit to provision of natural tourism services, and the other one is for tourism facilities. So the investor or locals could submit a proposal to national park authorities, and we will make an assessment to conformity with the conservation value. So the most important thing is the conservation value. The other permit is conservation area entry permit. This is permit for all activity inside the national park, like education, like a tourism, and also voluntary that have to have the conservation area permit. And we understand about the management of the conservation area or marine protected area. We cannot be a single fighter. We have to make a collaboration. So we have some collaboration in it. The first one, conservation partnership. This is agreement between Wakatobi National Park and Ministry with the local groups. This agreement gives a local group chance to manage particular area to have some activity like a traditional fishing, ecotourism, and mangrove wildlife. In line with the provision to access the management in the community, local groups also obligate to make a positive contribution to the conservation. And also we have other agreement with the Wakatobi government. There's two kind of the collaboration. The first one is strengthening function and the coastal development. This collaboration includes a community empowerment, protecting the marine area, biodiversity, and ecosystem restoration. And also development for public facilities such as sport, a bridge, or short trip that across the conservation area. This agreement supports Wakatobi development, but also control development impact on the marine ecosystem. Okay, this is the last slide of me. They are our local partner that support Wakatobi conservation effort. And one they say that really make my heart flutter is that they said ever like this. Our source of life is the marine, so we have to be part of the protected. Protect our marine ecosystem equal to protect our life. That's for all my presentation. Thank you for attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Setcheningrum. Next, to find out the initiatives being done in the Andaman Sea, part of the Bay of Bengal large marine ecosystem, Lampi Marine National Park, we have with us from Myanmar's Nature and Wildlife Conservation Division, Ms. Phio Tuzar Win.
Yes. Hi, good morning, the panelists and all the participants. I'm Phio Tuzar Win from Myanmar, and today I would like to share about the ecological restoration and Lampi Marine National Park implemented under the Re-establishing Natural Habitats Program, INH. I think it's an opportunity to share the country's nationwide rehabilitation approach, so that to call for the transboundary cooperation among the Andaman Sea sharing countries. The INH program is the government-led project. It's 10 years covering from 2019 to 2028, and it covers 19 terrestrial and aquatic protected areas. And each protected area, we estimately cost approximately $60,500 for the whole 10 years project area. And the INH program is mainly implemented by the Nature and Wildlife Conservation Division, Forest Department, another Ministry of Natural Resources and Environmental Conservation, and is co-implemented by another ministry, Moali, Agriculture and Livestock Irrigation, and the Fishery Department, and also the Navy, the local university, Miet University, and Institute of ICOS is an Italian-based NGO. And the project contributes to the international agreements like Paris Agreement, UN SDG 14, Life and the Water, and also the target 3 of increase in marine protected area, effective management of protected areas according to the 10-year action plan of post-2020 global biodiversity framework. Before going details to the restoration activities in the Lamit Marine National Park, I would like to introduce about it. It is located in Bobian Township, in the region of May Archipelago, Andaman Sea. And then it's officially designated as IUCN Category 1B, a national park, and it covers about 205 square kilometers or 20,461 hectares, and its key resources are hornbill, coral reefs, mocking culture, which approximately 3,000 occupants around the archipelago region. And as stated earlier, it is one of the 9 ASEAN Heritage Marine National Park in the region, and more or less similar with other transboundary marine national park. It encounters the anthropogenic activities like human population increase and increase in extraction of biological resources, and a loss of forest or mangrove covers due to the fish farm and agriculture expansion, IUU illegal, unreported, and unregulated extraction of fishing, hunting, and use of marine products like mollusks, sea cucumber, and starfish. Besides the biological resources, it also encounters the mining, discharge of trash from fishing vessels, and also the climate change impact is not quite high in the marine protected area, as it is the remote and isolated. The change in the temperature and the temperature is quite high, and the rainfall pattern is irregular. In comparison this year, last year have been the visitor numbers have been increasing, and human encroachment had been increased. This year, the enabling environment for effective management is weakened by the current legal frameworks due to the COVID pandemic outbreak and the political transition, and which makes much more difficulties in patrolling. And for the program context, it has 2 main components: restoration and protection. And coral reef restoration is main restoration activities for the Marine National Park. Although after 1 year project, the coral reef restoration has not even yet started, as designated, like 18 marine national parks, 18 coral reef nursery sites is to be explored in the Marine National Park, but it has not even started yet. And I would like to emphasize here transboundary cooperation, for example, Indonesia and Thailand to cooperate in the coral reef restoration around which shares the Andaman Sea LMA. And the second activity is sustaining biodiversity. We usually conduct animal survey and plant survey, and we usually use the results of these species survey as the performance results of evaluating the INH program. And I would like to share about these results to the ASEAN dashboards. And for the effective monitoring the illegal activities, we supposed to establish 1 guard post, 12 times of patrolling by using smart software, and also 25 boundary fillers on tri-destroyer regions, 18 cyborgs to be made for the public awareness. The next key activity is maintaining freshwater. We explored 18 freshwater sites around the marine in national park to supply the sufficient water, and we improve the water flow and improve the watershed areas by making the mangrove plantations around these areas, and each per year. For livelihood enhancement, and to get their support in conservation and like the co-management in the marine protected areas, we usually create the income generating opportunities like ecotourism and ecotourism approach. And we explore potential ecotourism sites each by year around the national park, and also make education and extension to the public people per month, once a month, and 12 times by year, and making leaflets for their public awareness also. And the last but not least important is the capacity building. We make the efforts to get strengthen the capacity of the park staff, which are the frontline staff for conducting the Marine National Park. And we usually make the trainings for them at least once a year. And the purchase of equipment is allocated about $27,000 per year for the necessary restoration activities. This national approach to marine ecosystem restoration can lead to the transboundary cooperation, and if we can make a more collaborative work, we can improve each region's livelihood and each region's ecosystems, like habitat connectivity and marine litter. Yes. Thank you very much for your kind attention. And if you need more information on the INH program, you can directly contact to the director of the Nature and Wildlife Conservation Division, and also me as I'm involved in freshwater and marine wetlands and conservation. Yes, thanks again. Yes.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Win. Our last presenter from the ASEAN member states will be sharing the initiatives being done at another AHP located in the Bay of Bengal LME, southwest corner of peninsular Thailand in the Andaman Sea. Let's welcome the head of the Tarutao National Park, Mr. Chayapruk Werawong.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Anas, thank you so much. You can hear me right now?
Yes, we can hear you right now.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I'm really appreciate your presence here today. Let me introduce myself. I am Mr. Aslam Sakaye on behalf of Tarutao Superintendent. I am marine scientist in Tarutao National Park. Yeah, today we would like to present about managing renewable natural resources in national park area by National Park Act, Buddhist era 2562. Our presentation divided into 5 mains. So we will start the impacts, outcome, and output of this project. The first impact of this project to apply imperative solution for the renewable resources usage problem in conservation area. And then the outcome is control the effect and revive the space condition or natural resources. And there are 3 outputs of this project. Hello? My slide. Excuse me, Anthony.
To our secretariat, could we request for the slides to be presented? Would that be possible?
One second.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, yeah, okay, this slide. Okay, continue to outcome to control the effect and revive the space condition or natural resources. And there are 3 outputs to increase and quality of aquatic animal and surround and necessary ground. And then to decrease the resource usage in the project area. And to control the illegal fishing, stopping small fish or catching aquatic animal on necessary ground. And the last one, determine determine to appropriate to renewable resources utilization zone. And this map show the national park zoning under management section 65 is as follow. The first one, dark green, district nature reserve zone is the most of Tarutao National Park, such as all Iceland and rainforest, and so on. This zone to maintain the condition of national park natural resources. And the next one, light green, this zone is designed for transportation road on Tarutao Island and coral reef all Iceland. This area have abundant natural resources. It is habitat and source of livelihood for animals, and it's important genetic source of aquatic animals. And orange one, outdoor recreation zone. This zone is suitable for walk and enjoy the view, cycling and relaxing, camping, diving, natural trail, and hiking trail. This light green. And next, yellow one intensive use zone. There are many facilities there, such as visitor center, dormitory, guest house, tents, camping sites, restaurant, first aid, room, and facility. Yellow one, such as Tarutao Island, Adang Fasik Pilaco. And the next, red one here, special use zone. They are owned by the people is housing, shop, agriculture area, which is still in the process of checking the license, are especially classified to support certain activity of the people, or other government agencies that are not under the responsibility of the national park to be classified as a special activity area. And then general zone, there will be two types of general zone. The first one, dark blue, this area, it is area 3,000 meters far away from the island. It is local fishing area, but illegal fishing equipment is not allowed. Just only traditional fishing, such as sea gypsy on the Adang Archipelago. We allow it, not only just only sea gypsy. And then general use zone, light blue one. It is an area more than 3,000 meters from the island to be the boundary of Tarutao National Park. Okay, next please. And this map, we show there are many tourist attractions in outdoor recreation zones, such as Pantai Malacca on Tarutao Island and Chabu Cliff on Tarutao Island, and then to Adang Archipelago and Arawi Island. Many destinations. There are many attractions in the intensive zone, yellow one, such as Pantai Malacca, Molek Bay, Taluk Wau, Sun Bay, Adang Island, and Kok Kai Island. Yeah, this area we control with X 2562. Yes, next please. This map, geological map of the Tunchi Park, there are relationship between Tarutao National Park and Langkawi Island. The Cambrian Ordovician sediment of this island, Tarutao and Machinchang Formation, are exposed the western part of Tarutao here and the north part of Langkawi here. And this island, Tarutao and Langkawi, far away around 5 and 6 kilometers. And this information are based mainly on the older investigation carried out from November to 1997 to April, and as master science projects sponsored by University of Malaya, and much help also provided by Professor H. Sawanta, who was formerly attached to the field investigation on Tarutao Island. Yeah, next. Please. Mr. Antoinette, next, please. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. This summary of petrol result for this fiscal year 2021. Before no, another slide. Can you already pass?
Oh, could we have the next slide, please? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. This slides. This summary of this petrol result for this fiscal year 2021. The number of the petrol squad, total 8 squad, and petrol time 1,130 time, and the number of the day of petrol 1,480 day, and land petrol 6,930.09 kilometer, and total 33,496 to 33 kilometer. And smart petrol is a qualitative petrol using data collection, explore ecological factor, including wildlife, plant species, and prevention to suppress trade and offense. All right, next, please. Next slide, please. This slide, cooperation with other agencies for the marine protected area environment. We set up meeting 2 times per year. The stakeholder commit in Taratau National Park, such as Department of Fishery, Tourism Attraction of Thailand, Marine Department, Royal Thai Police, Department of Provincial Administration, Traditional Fishing Group, Entrepreneurship Group. There are 3 agencies that cooperate with Taratau National Park, cover marine resources such as Reef Guardian Thailand, Do It by Safeguard Lipe, and Trachiro. All of them, they are non-profit organizations. And the way to protect, conserve marine resources, the first one, action under Section 65 of National Park Act, Buddhist Era 2562. And the second, marine debris collector. On October 2021, Taratau National Park cooperate with other agency and internship from marine debris such as Reef Guardian Thailand for keeping trash on the sea. And then we put the buoy line floating all dive site in Taratau National Park, cooperate with Reef Guardian Thailand and partnership too in Koh Lipe. And the last one, recovering monitoring of coral reef to study condition, and metamorphosis of the coral reef in Taratau National Park, Satun province. And then to study of database for the coral reef management in Taratau National Park area. Yeah, and thank you for attention from Taratau National Park.
Thank you very, very much once again, Mr. Werawong. We are truly grateful. Our next presenter is the Senior Technical Advisor of the Sustainable Coastal Protection through Biodiversity Conservation in Coastal Ecosystems Affected by Typhoons in the Philippines, or Pro-Coast Project of the GIZ. Let me call on Mr. Terence Daklis.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for inviting us to present our project. Let me share. Can you see my slides?
Not yet, sir.
Okay.
There you go. We can see it now. Thank you very much.
Yeah, again, good morning, good noon, and good day to everyone. I'm Terence Daklis, the Senior Advisor for GIZ Pro-Coast Project in the Philippines. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting us to share our field experiences, especially working at the grassroots level, at the community level. So I'd like to share our project. We work together with the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, Biodiversity Management Bureau in the Philippines, establishing marine protected areas and MPA networks and focusing on mangrove restoration, conservation, and setting up green belts in the Philippines. So my title would be a potential of abandoned, underutilized, and undeveloped aquaculture ponds that can be made into green belts and as a source for blue carbon incentives in the Philippines and also as a means of a nature-based solution for coastal protection. This project is funded by the Federal Ministry of Environment, Nature Conservation, and Nuclear Safety, together with the BMB and our active NGO, the Zoological Society of London. So the project is Sustainable Coastal Protection through Biodiversity Conservation, or PROCOAS. This was developed after the super typhoon that hit in the Philippines in 2013. We have 3 work packages. It's on policy advice and capacity development. On this slide, you can see that we have training of trainers on mangrove and beach forest rehabilitation together with Zoological Society. We focus on mangrove ecopark, green-gray engineering, and also MPA network. So at the end of my presentation, I have listed contacts, and if you're interested, you may reach us for manuals or e-files of our training sets. So in the Philippines, I have to give you a short background. Fish pond operations in public land requires fish pond lease agreements from the Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Fisheries, and Aquatic Resources. This would range from 25 to a maximum of 50 years. A lot of fish ponds in the Philippines are abandoned, underutilized, and undeveloped. So that's why the project, through the help of the DNR, BMB, ZSL, and BFAR, supported the reversion and restoration of these abandoned ponds. You can see in this picture, we focus on our main partner, the town of Leganes in Iloilo Province. From 2009 until 2018, you can see that this abandoned fish pond that was damaged by the typhoons are now being operated as an eco park through the help of the local government units and the community, and also from the DNR and national agencies. You can see manuals that we have developed through these years. Through ZSL, it was also a science-based study that showed that reforested abandoned fish pond would sequester almost 21,000 to 28,000 tons of carbons over 6.5 years. So this would really show the potential of using abandoned fish ponds as an alternative location for creating green belts all over the country. At the same time, we are promoting mangrove green belts with the help of Dr. Jurgen Primavera, where she recommends a sustainable ratio of 4 hectares of healthy mangrove forest to 1 hectare of fish pond ratio. So we conducted studies in 7 major islands in the Philippines, showing the potential of using green belts as a means of protecting the coast and at the same time operating aquaculture operations all over the country. So we work together with the DNR in updating the policy recommendations for the ICM, or the Integrated Coastal Management Bill, and the Greenbelt Bill that is now pending at the national level. So again, this could provide adequate coastal protection as experienced by our stakeholders and community after the typhoons, with intact forests really protecting lives and properties. It also showed from the scientific study that the AUU ponds would yield higher blue carbon stocks compared to the seafront planting. So thus, this would really put a highlight to the mangroves as a priority at the national scale for the Philippines, and it could support the NDCs of the country. In order to sustain this, the project, together with the DNR, the local government units, and the stakeholders, really set up mangrove integrated eco parks and marine protected areas. In the picture there, you can see in Sagay City, they have a mangrove eco park run by the community as sustainable tourism. And we are happy to note that a lot of the speakers this morning informed us the importance of community grassroots involvement. And also we are supporting one of the latest Ramsar site here in Negros Occidental. I think EAAF number 135, the coastal wetlands, where we also try to extend and expand mangrove plantation using the abandoned fish ponds. Again, if you are interested, this is a very short presentation, poster about our work. You may contact the DNR BMB for data about our project, our KPs or knowledge products, or the GIZ office here in the Philippines, and also our main partner, the Zoological Society of London, based in Iloilo. So I hope that you will find this very interesting. It's an innovative site of coming up with transboundary green belts all over the country in the Philippines, and we hope to share this at the regional level soon. So again, thank you, Tony, for this short presentation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dakles. You'll surely be hearing from us as well at Cora, and we hope to work together with you as well on this. Our final presenter is the program manager at the PEMC Resource Facility. Let us all welcome Mr. Thomas Bell.
Hello, just checking it's working.
Yes, we can see your slides. Thank you. Thanks, so much. We can hear you clearly as well. Thank you.
That's great. Hello, everyone. Glad everyone's still here. It's been a good session so far. My name is Thomas Bell. I'm a program manager at the PEMC Resource Facility. And it's great to be able to share this project with you. The ASEAN Norwegian Cooperation Project on Local Capacity Building for Reducing Plastic Pollution in the ASEAN region, better known as the ASEAN Project, is focused on the region as it's a critical area of the world for understanding global plastic pollution. It is a region full of rapidly growing economies and rapidly growing populations, which both correlate with a significant increase in plastic use. And thus, in plastic pollution, there's no single source for this plastic, which permeates through modern societies in its various forms. And the production, distribution, use, and end-of-life measures are all separate considerations with their own intricacies. Now, this complexity presents challenges for plastic management, compounded by a lack of information on many aspects of the plastic life cycle. So the ASEAN project is looking for clear and replicable measures that can be used at a river basin level. It focuses on the key aspects of monitoring and capacity from which all other actions can follow and which are crucial. The river basin itself symbolizes a defined system which collects plastic and outputs at a location. So it serves as a useful basis for management. The pilots for this project we're looking at in the Philippines and Indonesia. I will present on the Philippine example only due to time, but the aim through this is to have comparisons between different regions so that perhaps lessons learned can be applied throughout ASEAN. So this is effectively, it's a source-to-sea approach, taking into account processes throughout the entire drainage basin. River basins themselves can be quite large and are often transboundary. They cross local boundaries within countries and even national boundaries in some cases. So effective management of rivers and the plastic waste that flows through them requires effective cooperation and coordination. So it's one of those areas where you need to have that collaborative spirit. And it's an issue that cannot be solved unilaterally. So in the Philippines, we looked at Imus River. It's one of the many rivers leading into Manila Bay, surrounded by a very growing urban population. And so we looked at the baseline study through which we looked at the existing knowledge and the overlapping local, provincial, and national laws and regulations that map onto this river and the communities within it. From this baseline, we set up research to fill gaps in the knowledge. In terms of waste monitoring, which I mentioned before, was key to measuring the progress of any of your initiatives. We're looking that it's important to note that waste produced, so the plastic that is created, which can be monitored, for example, in terms of industry, is not the same as the waste that ends up being environmental pollution. In particular, the Philippines is known for a sizable informal recycling network, which takes high-value plastic out. So plastic like water bottles, plastic bottles, are usually not an issue in terms of plastic leakage compared to other plastics, such as plastic bags with very thin plastic that's very difficult to recycle or to reuse. As with much of the region, the Philippines is also exposed to significant seasonality with regards to rainfall, which greatly affects the way plastic pollution, once it's leaked into the environment, reaches the ocean. And knowing how plastic moves from the land to the ocean, given 80% of plastic in the ocean is from the land, is crucial to trying to prevent increasing marine plastic pollution. The next crucial aspect for plastic management in the communities is understanding the relationship it has and its usage has within communities, within businesses, and within other sectors. So we looked at, for example, public attitudes and knowledge regarding plastic pollution, as any long-term solution will need understanding and buy-in from all of society. And Philippine society especially, we're faced with the tea culture where sachets are a very common form of plastic waste because bulk buying is very difficult. And actually what was found, the surveys are still being analyzed, but the early results through the willingness to pay knowledge, attitudes, and practices is that many in the community, they're very aware of plastic pollution as an issue. So it's well known, they understand the importance of recycling and waste reduction. However, what is not well known is the awareness of initiatives taken by the local government to reduce plastic pollution. So that is one result, that there's a disconnect, at least in this river basin area, between the understanding of the problem and the understanding of what is trying to be done as a solution. And we hope to be able to compare this to Indonesia and maybe other river basins which would carry out similar studies to see if this is a common gap that can be filled. Now, as mentioned, the Imus River is part of the larger watershed of Manila Bay, and this is the urban heart of the country, supporting much of the Philippine population. In Indonesia, the River Josen, the Citarum, is also in one of the more highly populated areas, and thus the decisions and effects of plastic pollution in these rivers impacts a huge number of people. The idea of studying these areas is that lessons learned can be replicated to other areas. For example, the lessons from Imus would possibly be easily replicated to other areas of Manila Bay, and then hopefully towards other areas within the ASEAN region. Because managing pollution from the land before it reaches the protected waters of the Philippines, which are important not just for the environment and but for aquaculture and ecotourism, is a hugely important task for the near future in the Philippines. And monitoring allows a better understanding of pollution issues. If we can develop methods to monitor and take action that require a minimal capacity, it'll be much easier for local governments to take actions to solve these issues. So high capacity is important, but you also need to develop means that are within possibilities. So you need to find solutions that work for the local area. Thus, this is a global problem, but it's important through projects like this one that we start with local solutions. So thank you very much, and please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. And thank you to the host and all the other speakers for this event.
Thank you so much once again, Mr. Bell. And I'm sure everyone here is truly interested in all these topics. I myself have been taking so many notes and really truly inspired by what can be done with regional cooperation, with transboundary initiatives, and of course, through the power of partnerships. Now, if you have any questions or for any of our poster presentations, you may send them in through the Q&A box, and our presenters will do their best to type in their answers to your questions personally. Thank you very much. And again, thank you everyone for sharing all the wonderful work that you are doing. And truly, it is no wonder that all these organizations are dedicated to restoring these ecosystems and conserving our natural heritage, as the ASEAN's biodiversity is simply precious and amazing. And you know what? Actually, instead of me telling you about the ASEAN's precious biodiversity, which I've been talking about actually since this morning, from saying how wondrous and beautiful and precious it is, why don't we just watch it for ourselves? Let's all watch this. There you have it, the culture, the beauty, the people of the precious ASEAN region and its biodiversity. We are almost at the end of today's virtual session, but before we say our goodbyes, we have prepared a short presentation to summarize the conversations today. And here is a wonderful visual summary, very artistically created by Mr. Eisen Bernardo. All right, here we go. Now, it's so wonderful to have these synthesis and, of course, these summaries that actually happen live through the power of art, showing once again how we can make a difference in different ways. In the presentation on large marine ecosystem approach in biodiversity conservation and sustainable fisheries, Dr. Jose Padilla of the UNDP Bangkok Regional Hub provided an overview of the importance of transboundary waters and emphasized that transboundary is the norm, not the exception for the world's waters. He enumerated some common transboundary concerns and stressed that despite the known values of the ocean and advancements in LME management, challenges in transboundary areas persist. He highlighted the need to work together on shared concerns to find win-win solutions to improve the management of MPAs, acknowledge the economic importance of these waters, and the need for more support to implement commitments and enable meaningful engagements. The next presentation was on ASEAN Heritage Parks Program, Managing Network of Marine Protected Areas by Ms. Clarissa Arida of the ACB. Ms. Arida introduced the AHPs, a regional network of representative protected areas that embodies the variety of ecosystems and species in the region, representing the collective efforts of the ASEAN to effectively manage marine protected areas. She stressed that the ACB will continue to support the AMS through forging new partnerships and investments in the management of marine protected areas and will sustain existing networks and platforms through supporting science-based approaches in MPAs. These include establishing sustainable financing for MPAs, engaging all stakeholders, and providing capacity building towards effective MPA management. Ms. Yang Shufen of NParks Singapore then shared another initiative in the region, the ASEAN Flyway Network, or AFN. AFN was established to protect coastal wetland and marine habitats that are important ecosystems, ensuring the survival of migratory birds as they pass through different parts of the flyway. As our ecological connectors, these shared species in ASEAN require protection in all parts of the migratory route. Ms. Yang also highlighted the efforts and initiatives of the AFN, which include filling in knowledge gaps to designate more flyway sites in the region. The next presentation on transboundary approaches in ASEAN, Coral Triangle Initiative on Coral Reefs, Fisheries, and Food Security, or CTI-CFF, by Dr. Gregory Bennett of CTI-CFF Regional Secretariat, provided a global outlook on coral reefs and highlighted the status of coral reefs of the World 2020. Dr. Bennett stressed the need for closer cooperation of member countries and partners, capacity building for the stakeholders, and strengthening of relevant technical working groups. And finally, the presentation on designing resilient MPA networks in the Arafura and Timor Seas region by Dr. Handoko Adi Susanto of Arafura Timor Seas Ecosystem Action Plan, or ATSI, highlighted the rich biodiversity resources in ATSI and the importance goods and services provided by these resources and how these rich marine ecosystems are threatened by various unsustainable practices impacting marine species. Dr. Susanto stressed the need to validate some areas of interest, conduct more comprehensive stakeholders consultation in the 4 countries, zone all MPAs in the region using scientific design criteria, and compile the zoning plans in a regional database to address research priorities. Now, before we go on to the next part of our program, I would also like to take this opportunity to invite everyone to take part in the ASEAN Green Initiative. Launched on the 6th of August as part of the ASEAN anniversary celebration this year, this initiative aims to plant at least 10 million native trees across 10 ASEAN member states in a span of 10 years. And that's why we like to say 10, 10, 10, or 10, 10, 10 is more apt. Now, to learn more about the AGI, let us take a look at this. There you have it, the ASEAN Greening Initiative, and we invite everyone to send in their entries to join this wonderful initiative across the ASEAN to recognize initiatives that are actually doing their part to green our region. And now that we are nearing the end of the program, let me thank our speakers and presenters for imparting us with their knowledge and experiences on managing networks and transboundary cooperation on marine protected areas in the ASEAN region. We surely learned a lot from each and every one of you. And at this point, please allow me to share with you the visual summary of the second part of our program today, which was the poster presentations. And here we have it, another wonderful, artful creation. Dr. Diezmos of the ACB presented the ASEAN Biodiversity Dashboard, a knowledge management platform that houses valuable information on the region's biodiversity. Data featured in the database platform comes from the ASEAN member states, collated by the ACB with support from the European Union and NatureServe. The platform is highly interactive, which allows for increased access for scientists, policymakers, and the public. In Ms. Arista Setyaningrum's presentation on collaborational management in Wakatobi National Park in Indonesia, she enumerated the conservation targets by the management team, which include protection of the coral reefs, mangroves, seagrass, high economic value fish, cetaceans, birds, sea turtles, and spawning aggregation sites. She also presented various strategies that form the collaborative management of the park, including resource use zonation, tourism development, sustainable fisheries, and ecotourism. Ms. Arista also presented the strategic resource use implemented in the area, such as seaweed cultivation, tourism, navigation, and others. In the presentation on ecological restoration in Lampi Marine National Park in Myanmar, Ms. Fiutuzar Win shared the ongoing national effort on restoring various terrestrial and aquatic protected areas in Myanmar, called the Re-establishing Natural Habitats Program, which includes efforts in the Lampi Marine National Park. She emphasized the importance of collaborative efforts in protecting and restoring marine parks. She also highlighted opportunities for transboundary cooperation, such as coral reef restoration, combating marine litter, tourism, and habitat protection, among others. The next presentation was on managing renewable natural resources in Turatao National Park area in Thailand by Mr. Chayapruk Werangwong. He shared the relevant initiatives on the management of the renewable natural resources that they implemented in Turatao National Park. He also shared the patrolling system that effectively contributed to marine conservation in Turatao National Park. He highlighted the advantages of concerned efforts on marine resource management, such as marine debris collection, buoy installation, and reef monitoring. This was followed by the presentation on potential of abandoned, underutilized, and underdeveloped aquaculture ponds and mangrove greenbelts, such as blue carbon incentives in the Philippines by Mr. Terence Daklis of GIZ, where he highlighted the potential of abandoned, underutilized, and underdeveloped fish pond reversion to mangrove forests to provide adequate coastal protection and sequester carbon. He further emphasized the need to prioritize AUU pond reversion and mangrove greenbelts, which will facilitate mangroves as one of the nationally determined contributions, as well as the establishment of mangrove integrated eco-parks and protected areas. Finally, Mr. Thomas Bell of the PEMC Resource Facility presented the ASEAN-Norwegian Cooperation Project on local capacity building for reducing plastic pollution in the ASEAN region, or ASEANum. Mr. Bell stressed the complexity and lack of data on plastic's life cycle, hence the need for a replicable, collaborative, and holistic approach in addressing plastic pollution, plus a very pressing global problem that is detrimental to marine life and all biodiversity. He shared that ASEANO follows the source to sea river basin approach and aims to address knowledge gaps through baseline data, share lessons learned, and that can be applied throughout ASEAN, and understand the behavior of communities and businesses. Mr. Bell closed his presentation by saying that the project can also be scaled up and be replicated to other river basins in the region, and emphasized the need to start and invest in local solutions. Again, we would like to give a very, very big thank you to all of you who joined us today, to all of our distinguished guests, our speakers, our experts, and everyone joining us online across the world. For the latest news, information, and updates regarding the EAS Congress and PEMC's activities, please follow their social media accounts, which are flashed on the screen right now. I also encourage everyone to follow the ACB's social media accounts to be updated on the activities which we can all be a part of that will benefit the ASEAN's rich biodiversity. As we say in hashtag We Are ASEAN Biodiversity, we can all be a part of the solution. Follow the ACB's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn accounts. And of course, to help us improve our virtual events, please do share your feedback with us by filling out a short and brief evaluation form, the link to which is posted in the chat box in Zoom and in the comments section of Facebook Live. Now that we've learned a lot of new things, it's time that we put these learnings into action. And one of the special activities that you can be a part of, and I'm already a part of as well, is the ACB's ongoing campaign called hashtag We Are ASEAN Biodiversity. I know we've been repeating that since earlier, and it truly means so much to us. Our homes, our lives, our stories. Now, this was launched during the global celebration 2021's International Day of Biological Diversity, and it aims to encourage everyone, me and you, all citizens of the ASEAN and everyone across the world, to take a more active role in biodiversity conservation and the sustainable use of biological resources. Please do visit the campaign website, weare.aseanbiodiversity.org, to learn more and to know the ASEAN personalities who are one with ASEAN biodiversity. I have personally pledged my support to the campaign, and it was an extremely memorable experience during the production of the campaign video with the ACB that I was also able to share with friends and champions across the region. And now the official campaign video will be played in just a few moments, so please do stay tuned for that. And with that, we have reached the end of today's event. Once again, so much love and gratitude to each and every one of you for joining us today. And of course, we are honored and grateful for showing your support to PEMC and to the ACB. Again, I am Antoinette Tass, and I am ASEAN Biodiversity. We are citizens of the earth.
And ASEAN is our home.
It is rich with natural heritage.
The mountains,
the farmlands,
the cities,
the rivers,
the wetland.
Nature provides for us all.
Air,
nourishment,
shelter and protection,
jobs and livelihood, and the medicine to prevent diseases. But humankind has taken more than nature can provide.
What was convenient for us has become harmful for all life on Earth.
We have caused a crisis that is slowly destroying nature,
affecting us all.
It is time to set things right.
We can still mend our broken relationship with nature.
And with each other.
Plant native trees. Regrow our forests.
Maintain the natural fertility of our soils.
Stop destructive fishing practices.
Keep our waters free from litter. Harness the power of clean energy.
Become responsible tourists.
respect local culture,
design greener cities,
foster sustainable communities.
Saving biodiversity means saving lives.
To secure our future, we must nurture nature.
For our only home.
Why wait for the next crisis to happen?
It's time to act now.
For ASEAN.
For biodiversity.
For nature. Ako ay bahagi ng solusyon.
เราคือส่วนหนึ่งของการแก้ปัญหา
Tôi là một phần của giải pháp.
I am the part of the solution.
I am 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 part of the solution.
We are part of the solution.
Are you?